Good evening, listeners. Welcome to Noir Intellect. I'm your host, Victor Blackwood. If you enjoy mysteries, hidden clues, and uncovering the truth, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Leave it in the comments below. Now, keep your eyes open and your mind sharp. The mystery begins now. Chapter 1. The locked kitchen. Fritz locked the kitchen at 4:17 in the afternoon, which was more alarming than a gunshot and nearly as loud. The sound reached the office while Wolfe was dictating a letter concerning an orchid shipment from California. He stopped halfway through the word unacceptable, lifted his head and stared toward the hall. I stopped typing. Fritz Brenner did not slam doors. He closed them with the controlled finality of a man who believed hinges deserved courtesy. The noise we had heard was not merely a door closing. It was the kitchen bolt being driven home. Wolfe said, "I heard it. Investigate. You have legs. I also have judgment." I left my desk and went down the hall. The kitchen door was shut. A brass key projected from the lock on the other side, but the heavy inside bolt had been drawn. I knocked. "Fritz, no one enters." His voice was steady, which made the words worse. "What happened?" "I will speak to Mr. Wolfe. He sent me. Then return and tell him there will be no dinner." I put an ear to the door. "That is not a message. That is a declaration of war." "No dinner," Fritz repeated, "until every food delivery in this house has been examined." I went back to the office. Wolfe was exactly where I had left him, behind his desk in the oversized chair that had been built to accommodate both his body and his opinion of himself. Afternoon light rested on the bookshelves. The house was quiet except for the distant hum of the plant room equipment upstairs. "Well," he demanded, "Fritz has abolished dinner." Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Do not be flippant. He says nobody enters the kitchen, and no dinner will be prepared until every food delivery is examined." Wolfe stared at me as though I had reported that Manhattan had floated away. "Bring him. The door is bolted. Then tell him to unbolt it." I gave him the general idea. Wolfe pushed the gold bookmark into the orchid catalog and closed it. "Fritz," his voice carried through the hall. The kitchen door opened 30 seconds later. Fritz appeared wearing his white jacket and dark trousers. His face was pale, but his posture was rigid. In one hand he carried a square spice tin wrapped in a clean towel. In the other he held a small paper packet. He entered the office, closed the door, and placed both objects on my desk. Wolfe regarded him. "You locked my kitchen." "Yes, sir." "You announced that dinner would not be prepared." "Yes, sir." "You will explain before I am forced to consider the possibility that you have lost your reason." Fritz unfolded the towel. The tin was ordinary, dark red, with a printed label for Hungarian paprika. The paper seal around the lid appeared unbroken. Fritz said, "This tin came in yesterday's delivery from Keller and Sons. I opened it this afternoon while preparing the seasoning for the duck." Wolfe's gaze sharpened. "You opened a sealed tin?" "Yes, and found—" Fritz unfolded the paper packet. Inside lay a small quantity of bitter white powder. I leaned closer but did not touch it. Wolfe said, "How was it concealed?" "Beneath the paprika." The powder was inside waxed paper, folded flat against the bottom. "Odor?" "Very faint. Bitter almond, perhaps, but I will not guess." "Quantity?" "Enough to be dangerous." "That is also a guess." "Yes, sir." Fritz's hands were steady, but only because he was making them steady. Wolfe looked at the tin. "Who normally handles your spices?" "I do." "Who opened the "I did." "Who had access afterward?" "No one." "Impossible." Fritz's face tightened. I placed the tin in the locked spice cabinet. The cabinet key remained in my pocket. "Then either the packet was inserted before delivery, or your certainty is defective." "I know. Why lock the kitchen?" "Because I do not know what else may have been touched." Wolfe frowned. "You could have brought the matter to me without threatening dinner." "I wish to prevent anyone entering before I examined the room." "Including me." "Especially you." I sat on the corner of my desk. That is devotion with a sharp edge. Fritz ignored me. Wolfe asked, "Have you touched the powder?" "No." "Has any food been prepared with the paprika?" "No. I discovered it before using the spice." "What deliveries came yesterday?" "Meat, cream, herbs, coffee, 2 wine cases, flour, fruit, and the spice order." "From how many suppliers?" "7." Wolfe's lips compressed. Archie, telephone Mr. Kramer. I reached for the phone. The doorbell rang. I looked at the wall clock. 4:29. That will be Walter Crane, I said. Wolfe's expression did not improve. Walter Crane was a businessman whose appointment had been arranged 3 days earlier. He owned several shipping warehouses and had said over the telephone that someone was threatening to expose an old fraud unless he paid $50,000. Wolfe had accepted the appointment because Crane had mentioned a fee before mentioning justice. "Delay him," Wolfe said. I went to the front door. Crane stood on the stoop, with his hat pulled low against the cold. He was about 50, tall, narrow through the shoulders, and dressed in a grey overcoat that had cost enough to deserve better manners. His face was lined, his eyes impatient. "Mr. Goodwin? That depends on whether you came to pay a bill. I have an appointment with Nero Wolfe. You have arrived during a domestic crisis. That makes two of us." He stepped inside before I invited him. Behind him stood a younger man carrying a leather briefcase. Crane turned. "Wait in the car, Ellis." The younger man hesitated. "Mr. Crane, you said I should remain with you." "I changed my mind." Ellis looked at me, then went back down the steps. I took Crane's coat and led him to the office. Wolfe had not moved. Fritz stood beside my desk, guarding the spice tin as if it contained a live insect. Crane glanced at him. "I was told this appointment was private." "It is," Wolfe said. "Sit." Crane took the red leather chair. His gaze went to the paper packet. "What is that?" "Not your concern. I dislike mysteries in business offices. You have come to sell me one." Crane's mouth tightened. Before he could answer, Fritz said, "Mr. Wolfe, I must remove the cup." Wolfe's personal drinking cup stood on a small tray near the corner of his desk. It was heavy porcelain, cream-colored, with a broad handle. Fritz had brought it in after the orchid session, filled with cold water and a slice of lemon. Wolfe looked at it. "Why?" "Because I cannot be certain it is safe. It has been in this office." "Yes, Mr. Goodwin's observation. I left the tray briefly in the kitchen before bringing it." Wolfe scowled. Crane rose halfway from the chair. "This is absurd. I came here because my life may be in danger." "So, apparently, did the paprika," I said. Crane ignored me. "I have been followed for 2 days. Yesterday someone entered my office. This morning I received another demand." Wolfe said, "Sit." Crane remained standing. "I have no time for kitchen troubles." He reached for Wolfe's cup. Fritz moved quickly. "No, sir." Crane gave him an astonished look. "It is water. It is Mr. Wolfe's cup." Crane picked it up anyway. There are people who will drink poison rather than obey a servant. He raised the cup, swallowed once, and put it down. Fritz took one step forward. Crane's face changed. At first it was only surprise. Then his hand went to his throat. The color drained from his cheeks, and the muscles around his mouth tightened. He tried to speak. No sound came. The cup struck the rug. Crane collapsed beside Wolfe's desk. I was out of my chair before he reached the floor. Fritz froze. Wolfe said sharply, "Archie." I knelt beside Crane. His breathing came in short, hard pulls. His eyes were open but unfocused. His fingers clawed at his collar. "Call a doctor," I said. Fritz moved toward the phone. "Use the hall extension," Wolfe ordered. "Do not touch anything else." Fritz left. I loosened Crane's collar and rolled him partly onto his side. He began to shake. Not violently, but enough to rattle his cuff links against the floor. Wolfe remained behind the desk, watching. "How long after the water?" he asked. 10 seconds. "Odor." I bent near Crane's mouth. "Nothing I can identify. Do not taste it. Thank you for the guidance." Crane's breathing stopped for 1 terrible second, then returned with a harsh gasp. Fritz came back. "Dr. Vollmer is on his way. I also called an ambulance." "Good." His eyes went to the cup on the rug. "I should have removed it," Wolfe said. "Do not indulge in useless guilt. I knew something was wrong in the kitchen. You did not know the cup was poisoned." Fritz looked at him. "You believe it was?" "I believe Mr. Crane drank and collapsed. Labels may wait." The front door opened without the bell. Dr. Vollmer had used his emergency key. He entered carrying a medical bag, took one look at Crane, and went to work. I gave him the sequence while he checked the pulse, pupils, and breathing. "Poison?" I asked. "Possibly. Help me lift him." We moved Crane onto the sofa. Vollmer gave him an injection and ordered Fritz to bring clean water, then stopped himself. "No, bottled water." Fritz went to the basement storeroom, which had not been part of the afternoon delivery. The ambulance arrived 6 minutes later. 2 attendants carried Crane out alive, though unconscious. Volmer went with them. Before leaving, he said, "Do not touch the cup. I will telephone from the hospital." The front door closed. The brownstone became silent. Fritz stood in the office doorway, holding the unopened bottle of water. Wolfe looked at him. "Locked the kitchen because you found a concealed powder." "Yes. The cup was in the kitchen before you brought it here. For perhaps 2 minutes."
"Was it unattended?"
Fritz's face tightened. "Yes." "Who entered the kitchen during that period?" "No one that I saw. That was not my question. The delivery boy from Keller and Sons came to collect an empty crate. I was in the pantry when he entered. I said, 'Name, Thomas Vale. Anyone else?' Theodore came down for warm water." "Theodore Horstman?" "Yes." "Did he touch the tray?" "I do not know." Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Crane arrived soon afterward." "Yes. I looked at the spice tin, the powder, and the cup lying on the rug. Someone hides poison in Fritz's private supplies, then cranes from Wolfe's personal cup and collapses." Wolfe said, "An attractive sequence." "Too attractive, entirely." Fritz put the bottle down. "Mr. Wolfe, I am responsible for everything served in this house. You are responsible for food, not human malice. The poison was found in my cabinet, which is why it was found." Fritz stared at him. Wolfe continued, "If someone intended to poison through your cooking, the packet would have been emptied into an ingredient. Instead, it was hidden intact where you would discover it. To make me afraid, to make you lock the kitchen." I looked at Wolfe. "And when the kitchen was locked, every food delivery became suspicious." "Yes." "Including the cup?" "Yes." "So the powder may have nothing to do with what Crane drank." "Precisely." Fritz's face changed from guilt to anger. "Someone used my kitchen. Someone used your caution." The doorbell rang again. This time, it was Kramer. He entered wearing his inspector's coat and his usual expression, but he stopped when he saw the cup on the rug, the spice tin on my desk, and Fritz standing beside the locked kitchen door. "What happened?" "A client collapsed after drinking from Wolfe's cup," I said. Kramer looked at Wolfe. "Your cup? Who filled it?" Fritz answered. "I did." "Who handled it?" "I did." "Who found the poison?" "I did." Kramer's eyes moved to the paper packet. "Where?" "In a sealed spice tin inside my locked cabinet." Kramer exhaled through his nose. "That does not look good." Fritz stood straighter. Wolfe said, "Appearances have already performed enough work today." Kramer crouched beside the cup, but did not touch it. "Crane alive? When he left, why was he here to consult me concerning blackmail? Who knew about the appointment? Mr. Crane, his secretary, Mr. Goodwin, Fritz and I." "Anybody else?" "The man who drove him here," I said. "Ellis." Kramer stood. "I'll need the kitchen sealed." "It is already locked," Wolfe said. "Then Fritz will give me the key." "No." Kramer turned his head slowly. "No. No policeman will enter my kitchen until Mr. Goodwin has recorded its present condition. You have a poisoned man on the way to a hospital, and you have a habit of moving first and observing afterward." Kramer's face reddened. "I stepped between the weather systems. I can photograph the kitchen in 5 minutes. 3, Kramer said. 4, he grunted. Fritz unlocked the door but did not enter. The kitchen beyond was spotless, warm and full of preparations for a dinner that had been suspended in mid-thought. A dressed duck rested on a tray. Herbs lay chopped on a board. Copper pans reflected the lights. On the central table stood the open paprika tin. Beside, it was an empty place in the flour dust where something rectangular had rested. I pointed. "What was there?" Fritz looked. "The delivery ledger. Where is it now?" He searched the table, pantry shelf and desk. "It is gone," Kramer said. "What was written in it?" "Every supplier, delivery time, item and signature, including the spice tin." "Yes. Who could have taken it?" Fritz's face hardened. "Anyone who entered before I locked the door. Photographed the room, the cabinets, the tray position, and the empty mark where the ledger had been. Then I noticed the kitchen window. It was closed but not latched. Fritz." He came over. "Do you leave this unlatched?" "Never." Kramer examined the sill. A faint white smear marked the inner wood. Not powder. Grease, perhaps mixed with dust. The window opened onto the narrow rear yard and the service passage beside the house. Kramer looked at me. "Someone came through here Left Wolf's voice reached us from the hall. Archie, I returned to the office. He had not moved, but his expression had settled into the stillness that meant work had begun. The missing ledger? He asked. Gone. Kitchen window unlatched. The spice packet, still where Fritz found it. The cup, still on the rug. Wolfe looked at Kramer. Mr. Crane was not poisoned because Fritz failed to protect my kitchen, Kramer said. You don't know that. I know someone wished the kitchen to become the center of inquiry. Why? To conceal what occurred outside it. I sat at my desk. The cup was in the kitchen for 2 minutes, but it stood in this office before Mr. Crane arrived, under my eye. Were you here continuously? I opened my mouth, then closed it. I had gone to answer the door. For less than a minute, the office had been empty except for Wolfe, who had been facing the spice tin and questioning Fritz. Crane's driver, Ellis, had remained outside. Unless he had not, Wolfe said, Mr. Crane did not come alone. Mr. Ellis was instructed to wait in the car. Did you watch him return to it? No. Then someone may have entered by the front hall while you brought Mr. Crane here, Kramer said, and poisoned the cup in a house full of people. Wolfe looked at the fallen porcelain. Or Mr. Crane brought the poison with him. That stopped us, I said. He poisoned himself, not necessarily, but he seized the cup against Fritz's warning. His action was abrupt and unreasonable. He was impatient. Impatience does not create thirst, Kramer asked. What are you suggesting? That the intended victim may not have been Mr. Crane. I looked at Wolfe's cup. It had been prepared for Wolfe. Fritz saw it too. His face went white again. Wolfe's voice remained calm. The hidden packet made Fritz suspicious. The locked kitchen ensured that the cup would be questioned. Mr. Crane's collapse made the suspicion immediate. But if Crane was not the target, I said, why drink from it? Wolfe looked toward the front hall. Because someone needed poison to enter him publicly. The telephone rang, I answered. Dr. Vollmer spoke from the hospital. Crane is alive. Barely. The symptoms suggest a fast-acting alkaloid, not cyanide. We are running tests. Was it in the water? We will not know until the cup is examined. Can he talk? No. When? Perhaps tomorrow, if he survives. I hung up and reported. Kramer reached for the cup evidence bag he had brought. Wolfe, Tail said. Inspector. Kramer stopped. The powder in the spice tin and the substance in the cup may be different. I know how to run a laboratory. Then run 2 tests. Kramer bagged the cup and packed it separately. Before leaving, he said to Fritz, do not leave the house. Fritz's chin lifted. I had not intended to abandon dinner permanently. When Kramer was gone, Wolfe looked at the locked kitchen. Fritz, yes, sir, dinner will be prepared. Fritz stared. Before the laboratory report, using supplies from the basement reserve. There is cold beef, bottled vegetables, bread and cheese. Acceptable. Fritz looked offended by the word, which was a good sign. He went to work. I sat at my desk. So the kitchen was locked to point at Fritz. The hidden powder was planted to be found. Crane's collapse turned suspicion into accusation. Yes, somebody stole the delivery ledger and used the kitchen window, apparently. Then who poisoned Crane? Wolfe glanced at the place where his cup had stood. That question is premature. What is the right one? Why did Walter Crane insist upon drinking from a cup he had been told not to touch? Outside, evening settled over West 35th Street. The house smelled faintly of cold beef, old books, and the duck Fritz would not risk cooking. The kitchen was no longer locked, but the case was. A packet of poison had been placed where Fritz would find it. A cup meant for Wolfe had nearly killed another man. And somewhere between the front door and the kitchen window, someone had arranged matters so that the best cook in New York appeared to be guarding the poison he had supposedly used. Chapter 2. The cup meet for Wolfe. Dr. Edwin Hale telephoned at 8:20 the next morning and began by saying Walter Crane was alive. That was the good news. The bad news took longer. I answered from the office, while Wolfe finished breakfast in the dining room. Fritz had served eggs baked with cream, toasted brown bread, and a dish of stewed pears from the basement reserve. Nothing from the previous day's deliveries had been used. Fritz had inspected every jar, bottle and package twice, then stood over Wolfe's plate until the first bite was swallowed. That was unnecessary. It was also touching, though I would not have used the word where either man could hear it. Dr. Hale spoke briskly. Crane regained consciousness for less than a minute at 6:15. He could not answer questions, but his breathing has improved. You said he was poisoned. He was. The preliminary analysis found aconitine in the residue from the cup. I wrote the word down. How much? Impossible to determine exactly. Most of the liquid spilled when he collapsed. He swallowed only a small amount. Enough to put him in the hospital. More would have killed him before the ambulance arrived. Was the poison in the water? Yes, and the white powder from the spice tin, not aconitine. That was the first clean fact of the morning. What is it? A concentrated bitter compound used in certain commercial food processes. It can cause severe illness in quantity, but it is not what poisoned Crane. Cooking compound, broadly speaking. It is sometimes used in trace amounts during the preparation of flavor extracts. It should never have been in a household spice tin. Could it kill? In sufficient quantity, perhaps. More likely it would produce vomiting, dizziness, and collapse. So we have two poisons. We have one confirmed poison and one dangerous substance. You doctors guard nouns like family silver. We prefer not to arrest the wrong word. I liked him. Can Crane talk now? Not safely. Perhaps later today. Did he say anything during the minute he was awake? One word. What word? Harrison. I wrote that down too. Name, possibly. It might also have been something else. His speech was weak. Did he ask for anyone? No. Can visitors see him? No. That means Kramer is already there. Dr. Hale paused. How did you know? He considers hospital rules decorative. He arrived at 7. Thank you, doctor. I hung up. Wolfe entered at 8:30 sharp, carrying the morning paper and wearing a brown suit with a yellow shirt. He settled behind his desk, adjusted the vase of orchids by half an inch, and looked at me. Report. I gave him Hale's information in order. Aconitine, he said. Yes, fast-acting, intensely bitter and dangerous in very small quantities. You know it? I know of it. I do not cook with it. The powder in the paprika tin was something else. A bitter commercial cooking compound. Wolfe's eyes moved toward the hall. Where is Fritz? In the kitchen. I went. The kitchen door was no longer locked, but Fritz had placed a chair under the handle of the service entrance and tied the window latch with copper wire. He stood at the central table, examining a jar of preserved mushrooms against the light. Mr. Wolfe wants you. I will come. You look as if the mushrooms confessed. They have not. That is often the first sign of guilt. He did not smile. We returned to the office. Wolfe said, Dr. Hale has identified the substance from the spice tin as a dangerous commercial cooking compound. Fritz stood before the desk. Yes, sir. Not aconitine, no. You knew that. Fritz hesitated. I suspected it. You recognized the odor immediately. I recognized something similar. Where? Fritz's face closed. I would prefer not to say. Wolfe stared at him. I had seen Fritz refuse a request from Wolfe only 3 times. Once over the treatment of a copper pan, once over a guest who had insulted his soup, and once when Wolfe proposed substituting canned asparagus for fresh. Each refusal had contained dignity and danger. This one contained fear. Wolfe said, Your preference is irrelevant. I understand. Then answer. Fritz looked at the orchids rather than at Wolfe. I cannot. Wolfe's lips tightened. Cannot or will not, will not. The office became still. I said, That is a dangerous distinction before breakfast. Fritz ignored me. Wolfe leaned back. You discovered a concealed substance in my kitchen. A man was poisoned from my cup. You recognized the smell of the substance quickly, and now you refuse to explain why. Yes, sir. That is intolerable, I know. Do you? Yes. Did you place the packet in the spice tin? No. Did you know it would be there? No. Did you poison the cup? Fritz's head came up. No. Did you know the cup had been poisoned? No. Are you protecting the person who placed either substance? Fritz's answer took 1 second too long. No. Wolfe saw it. So, did I. Wolfe's voice lowered. Fritz's face showed pain, but he remained silent. The doorbell rang. I went to answer it. Kramer stood on the stoop with a laboratory envelope in one hand and irritation in the other. He came in without waiting. Morning. That depends on the next sentence. The cup was poisoned with aconitine. We know. His eyes narrowed. How? Doctors use telephones. He entered the office, saw Fritz standing before Wolfe's desk, and stopped. Good. I want him, Wolfe said. You may speak with him here. Kramer removed his coat but kept the envelope. The cup belonged to you. Yes. It was prepared for you. Yes. Crane took it before you drank. Yes. Then Crane was not the intended victim. Possibly. Kramer looked at him. Possibly. Do not confuse ownership with intention. Your name may not have been written on the water, but it was your cup on your desk. That is evidence of routine, not motive. Kramer put the laboratory envelope on my desk. The aconitine was concentrated near the bottom. It had not fully dissolved. I picked up the report, meaning it was added recently, within minutes of Crane drinking. Could it have been in the cup before Fritz brought it from the kitchen? Yes. Could it have been added in the office? Yes. Kramer turned to Fritz. Yes. With what? Cold water from a sealed bottle and one slice of lemon. You left it unattended. For perhaps 2 in the kitchens. Who was there? No. 1 when I left. Who came in? Theodore Horstman came for warm water. A delivery boy named Thomas Vale entered to collect an empty crate. And you? I was in the pantry. Did either man touch the cup? I did not see. Kramer nodded slowly. Then the poison could have been added there, Wolfe said. It could also have been added here, while Archie admitted Mr. Crane. Kramer looked at me. Who was in the office? Wolfe and Fritz. Anyone passed through the hall. Crane's assistant, Ellis, stayed outside. You saw him stay outside? No, that is useful. I found it irritating. Kramer returned to Fritz. The powder in the spice tin is not aconitine. I know. How did you know? Fritz looked at Wolfe. Wolfe said, Answer him. I recognized the odor. From where Fritz's hands tightened at his sides. I will not say. Kramer stared. That is your answer? Yes. You are standing in a house where a man was poisoned from your employer's cup. A dangerous substance was found in a spice tin under your control. You recognized it, and you refused to say how. Yes. Kramer looked at Wolfe. He is either protecting someone or hiding his own connection. Wolfe's gaze remained on Fritz. Fear and guilt are not the same thing. They often travel together. So do policeman and error. Kramer reddened. This is not a debate. Everything becomes a debate when you arrive without proof. Kramer picked up the paper packet from the evidence envelope he had brought. It was sealed inside glassine. The lab says the powder is amaragentine concentrate mixed with a stabilizing agent, used in tiny quantities to prepare certain bitters and flavor extracts. Wolfe looked at Fritz. Is that what you recognized? Fritz said nothing. Kramer continued. It is not common in ordinary kitchens. It is handled by specialty manufacturers, pharmaceutical kitchens, and a few private cooks trained in old commercial methods. Fritz's face changed slightly at the final phrase. Kramer saw it. So that is it. Fritz's chin lifted. No. You worked in such a place. No, you knew someone who did. Silence. Kramer took 1 step closer. Who? Wolfe said. Enough. Kramer turned. You're protecting him. I am preventing you from mistaking pressure for deduction. He knows something. Certainly. And refuses to tell us. Certainly. That makes him suspect. It makes him secretive. Kramer pointed toward the kitchen. He locked the room where the substance was found, to preserve it or control it. He called attention to the packet himself. Criminals do that. Fools do. Fritz is not a fool. Kramer's eyes narrowed. Then why is he acting like one? Fritz answered before Wolfe could. Because some knowledge is not mine to reveal. Kramer looked back at him. Whose is it? Fritz said nothing. Wolfe's voice became cold. You will go to your room. Fritz stared. Mr. Wolfe, you will remain there until I send for you. I have lunch to prepare. Archie will obtain food elsewhere. That was punishment of the highest order. Fritz's face went pale. Yes, sir. He turned and left. We heard him climb the stairs. Kramer watched the doorway. You believe him? Wolfe picked up the laboratory report. I believe he did not poison Walter Crane. Why? Because he found the packet before the cup was used. That could be part of the plan. To what end? To create a second suspect substance and confuse the laboratory. Wolfe shook his head. If Fritz intended to poison me, he would not place a harmlessly conspicuous packet in his own cabinet, lock the kitchen, summon attention, warn against the cup, and then permit a guest to drink from it. He did not permit it. Precisely. Kramer grunted. I said. Crane took the cup after Fritz warned him. Kramer looked at me. That bothered me too. He was impatient, I said, or knew the cup was poisoned. Wolfe's eyes came to Kramer. Indeed. Kramer sat in the red leather chair. You think Crane poisoned himself? I think his action requires explanation. He nearly died. People have nearly died while attempting lesser frauds. What would he gain? That depends upon why he came. I opened the appointment file. Crane had telephoned 3 days earlier. He claimed someone was blackmailing him over an old business fraud. He had refused to give details until meeting Wolfe in person. His assistant, Ellis, had arranged the time. I said, Crane wanted Wolfe to investigate blackmail. Kramer said, maybe someone followed him here and poisoned the cup. Then the killer took a remarkable risk, Wolfe said. The cup was intended for me, yet Mr. Crane seized it. If a stranger entered the office during Archie's absence, he could not know Crane would drink. Unless Crane was supposed to. Wolfe nodded. That is the point. Kramer's face became thoughtful. You think the collapse was staged? The poison was real. Staging can be real. Yes. I said, he swallowed only a small amount. Because most of the water remained in his mouth or spilled, Kramer said. Dr. Hale says another swallow might have killed him. So Crane could not control the dose precisely, I said. Wolfe looked at the laboratory report. Unless he knew the poison had settled at the bottom and intended only to wet his lips. But he swallowed. Perhaps more than intended. Kramer stood. I'll question Ellis, so will Archie, Wolfe said. No, yes, he is a police witness. He was also connected to my client before the police arrived. Your client may not survive, then my interest increases. Kramer put on his coat. I'm taking the spice tin, delivery records, cup report, and samples. The delivery ledger is missing, I reminded him. I know. We found no prints on the kitchen window, except yours and Fritz's, or cleaning. Any trace outside. A partial shoe mark in the service passage, size 10 or 11. Rubber sole. That narrows it to half of Manhattan. Kramer opened the office door. Before leaving, he looked toward the stairs. If Fritz remembers where he smelled that compound, call me. Wolfe said, if Fritz speaks, I will decide whom to call. Kramer left with the expression of a man who had received both an answer and an insult, and was unsure which weighed more. At 10:30, Theodore Horstman came down from the plant rooms. Theodore was not built for drama. He was thin, serious, and most comfortable among orchids, where emotional expression was limited to blooming or dying. He stood in the office doorway holding a notebook. Mr. Wolfe, Archie said you wished to see me. Sit. Theodore took the chair Fritz had occupied. Wolfe said you entered the kitchen yesterday afternoon. Yes. For what? Warm water. One of the humidifying trays needed cleaning. Did you see my cup? Theodore frowned. A cup was on the side table. Did you touch it? No. Did anyone else enter? A delivery boy. Thomas Val. I don't know his name. Describe him. About 25. Dark hair. Brown jacket. He carried an empty wooden crate. Did he approach the side table? Yes. Why? The crate was beneath it. Did you watch him lift it? No. I filled the pitcher. Did he leave before you? Yes. Did he carry anything besides the crate? Theodore thought. A folded cloth under one arm. What kind? White. Perhaps a towel. Did Fritz see him leave? I don't think so. Wolfe asked. Did the boy speak? He asked whether the spice shipment had arrived safely. That was worth keeping. I wrote it down. Exact words? Wolfe asked. He said, did Mr. Brenner find everything in order? Not whether the delivery arrived? No. Whether Fritz found it in order. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. He expected Fritz to inspect it. Theodore nodded uncertainly. I suppose? Did you answer? I said I did not know. Then he smiled. Why? I don't know. Theodore returned upstairs. I looked at Wolfe. The packet was planted to be discovered, yes. And Vale wanted confirmation, yes. So the kitchen scare was deliberate, certainly. Who is Thomas Vale? Find him. I telephoned Keller and Sons. The manager told me no employee named Thomas Vale worked for them. Their delivery the previous day had been made by a driver named George Mills, age 56, who had left the crate and gone. I asked whether anyone had been sent back to collect it. No. The man in the kitchen had used a false name and a borrowed purpose, I reported to Wolfe. He closed his eyes. The intruder enters by the service passage or front hall, asks whether Fritz found the packet, approaches the tray, and leaves with a crate that gave him reason to be there. He could have poisoned the cup. Yes, Then Crane was lucky to drink only a little. Perhaps. You still doubt he was accidental? I doubt every accident arranged by a stranger. The telephone rang. It was Kramer. Ellis is gone, he said. Crane's assistant. He left his apartment during the night. Suitcase gone. Office records say he was hired 6 months ago under the name Martin Ellis. That identity belongs to a dead man in Ohio. Anything else? Crane's secretary says Ellis knew about the appointment with Wolfe. He drove Crane to the brownstone and disappeared 10 minutes after the ambulance arrived. So the driver did not stay in the car? No. Was he the man in Fritz's kitchen? We don't know. Description: 30. Fair hair, blue eyes. Not Theodore's dark-haired delivery boy. Could be a disguise. Could be 2 men. Kramer grunted. Crane woke again. He said one sentence. What? The cup was for Wolfe. I looked at Wolfe. He had heard it through the receiver's faint leak. Did Crane explain? I asked. No. He lost consciousness. Convenient. Start. Too late. I replaced the receiver. The cup was for Wolfe. Wolfe's expression did not change. That sentence may be warning, confession, or instruction. Kramer takes it as proof you were the target. Kramer enjoys conclusions before lunch. You don't? I enjoy lunch. At 1 o'clock, Fritz did not come down. That was more disturbing than the poison. I telephoned Rusterman's and ordered food. Wolfe objected to the soup, the bread, and the temperature of the plates, but ate. His appetite was never proof of calm. It was proof that he considered nourishment necessary while being angry. At 2:15, I went upstairs. Fritz's door was open. He sat at a small desk with an old photograph in his hands. When he saw me, he turned it face down. Wolfe wants the truth, I said. I know. Kramer wants it too, but Wolfe is more dangerous. I know that also. Who is in the photograph? Fritz covered it with his hand. I cannot tell you. Is it connected to the powder? Yes. Connected to Crane? I do not know. Connected to the man who entered the kitchen? Fritz's face tightened. Possibly. That was enough to make the room colder. Then your silence may protect the person who poisoned Wolfe's cup. No, you cannot know that. Fritz stood. I know the person I am protecting would never poison Mr. Wolfe. Who? He looked toward the hall, as if Wolfe might hear through 2 doors and a flight of stairs. Then he said quietly, a man who once saved my life. Before I could ask more, footsteps sounded below. The front bell rang. I went downstairs. A messenger stood outside, holding a narrow parcel, addressed to Fritz. There was no sender's name. I carried it to the office. Wolfe examined the wrapping. Open it. Inside was an old silver tasting spoon, blackened at the bowl. A folded card lay beneath it. The message had been typed. Fritz remembers the first kitchen. He should also remember what happened to the man who you spoke. Wolfe read it twice. I said, fear and guilt, not the same thing, he replied. No. But whoever sent this knows which one Fritz is feeling. Wolfe looked toward the stairs. The poison in the cup was meant to injure or kill me. The packet in the spice tin was meant to frighten Fritz. Those acts are connected, but they serve different purposes. To silence Fritz, to control him. And Crane? Wolfe looked at the typed message. Mr. Crane knew the cup was for me. We must learn whether he came to warn me, use me, or die in my office. The tasting spoon lay between us, dark with age and memory. Upstairs, Fritz still guarded a name. At the hospital, Walter Crane guarded a sentence. And somewhere in New York, a man who knew about Fritz's first kitchen had decided that poison was not enough. He wanted fear served with it. Chapter 3. The tin behind the flower. At 9:15 the next morning, Fritz unlocked the kitchen for me and handed over the key as if he were surrendering custody of a wounded relative. You will move nothing without telling me, he said. I'll try not to insult the onions. I am serious, Archie. So am I. Ons hold grudges. He did not smile. He had slept badly, if at all. His eyes were shadowed, and the silver tasting spoon, delivered the previous afternoon, had left a deeper mark than the threat written beside it. Wolfe had permitted Fritz to resume cooking only from supplies purchased personally by me and inspected by all 3 of us. It was an arrangement that offended Fritz, exhausted me, and pleased nobody except the grocer on 10th Avenue. Wolfe remained in the plant rooms with Theodore, told me to search the kitchen from ceiling to cellar and report before 11. Do not search merely for poison, he had said. Search for intention. That was a useful instruction if you already knew what it meant. The kitchen was spotless. Fritz had not cleaned it since the packet was discovered, because Wolfe had forbidden him to disturb anything unnecessarily. Even so, the room looked cleaner than most operating theatres. Copper pans hung above the range, knives rested in their fitted rack, jars stood in straight rows, the flour bin, spice cabinet, pantry shelves and cold storage boxes were arranged according to a system Fritz could detect from 3 rooms away. The altered paprika tin had been found on the second shelf of the locked spice cabinet, directly behind a large flour container. That was the first point that bothered me. "Why behind the flour?" I asked. Fritz stood near the central table with his arms folded. "It was not hidden behind the flour, it was physically behind it. That is where I keep rare or strong ingredients which I do not use daily. Paprika is not rare. That paprika was. What made it special? It came from a private import. The flavor is deeper, less sweet, and suitable for the duck sauce, Mr. Wolfe requested. Who knew you kept special ingredients there? Anyone who had watched me work. That narrows it to everyone who has ever entered this kitchen. Not everyone observes. Poisoners usually do." I opened the cabinet. The shelf had 3 levels of use. Common spices stood in front. Less common tins occupied the middle. A handful of expensive extracts and rare seasonings rested behind the flour container, where they were protected from heat and direct light. The red paprika tin had been returned to its exact place. Not approximately, exactly. Fritz could tell, because the round base had left a faint ring in the shelf paper. The tin sat perfectly inside it. "Did you put it there when the delivery arrived?" I asked. "Yes." "Did anyone see you?" Nora Bell was in the kitchen. That was a name I had not heard in the first account, because Fritz had considered her presence unimportant. Nora Bell came twice a week to help with heavy cleaning and household linen. Wolfe disliked resident servants, additional footsteps, and strangers who might disturb his books. Fritz disliked allowing anyone else to touch the kitchen. They had compromised by permitting Nora to clean only the back stairs, dining room cupboards, and service hall. "How long has she worked here?" I asked. 8 months. "Yes, everyone is reliable until the police arrive." Fritz gave me a look. "What was Nora doing when the spice order came?" "Polishing the silver cupboard in the dining room. She entered to ask for cloths." "Did she see you place the tin?" "She may have." "Who else?" "The deliveryman, Samuel Reed." Fritz nodded. Samuel Reed turned out to be the dark-haired man Theodore had seen in the kitchen. Thomas Vale was the name he had given when questioned casually. Keller and Sons had finally identified him from Theodore's description as Samuel Reed, a temporary warehouse worker dismissed the week before the delivery. That produced a simple question. Why had a dismissed employee returned using a false name to collect an empty crate? I inspected the cabinet lock. No scratches, no bent metal. Fritz's key was the only one known to exist, though a skilled man could have copied it or used a thin tool on the simple mechanism. I removed the tin with gloved hands. The paper seal around the lid appeared intact. The manufacturer's label crossed from the lid to the side in 2 places. Neither strip was broken. Anyone examining it casually would have believed the tin had never been opened. Fritz had opened it from the top, cutting through one seal. I turned it over. The bottom was made of pressed metal, joined to the cylinder by a narrow rolled rim. At first it looked ordinary. Then the lamp caught a line near the edge. A cut. It ran almost halfway around the bottom, thin as a hair. Someone had inserted a blade beneath the rolled rim, lifted the metal base, placed the waxed packet under the paprika, then pressed and sealed the bottom again. I reached for a magnifying glass. A transparent adhesive had been applied along the cut. Whoever did it had worked carefully enough to preserve the top seal and poorly enough to leave one shining thread of glue. "Fritz," he came beside me. "Look," his face hardened. "It was open from below." "Yes, that would require tools and time. And afterward the bottom would need pressure to close correctly. A small vise, perhaps." Fritz stared at the tin. "Then the packet was inserted before the delivery reached this house. Probably. Samuel Reed. Maybe." He looked toward the window. "Then why enter the kitchen later?" "To make sure you found it." That is what Theodore heard him ask. Yes. I placed the tin on clean paper and examined the shelf. The faint ring beneath it was complete except for a small break at the rear. Inside the break lay a tiny flake of dried adhesive, the same clear material used under the tin. Someone had set it on the shelf before the glue had fully hardened. Was the tin warm when it arrived? Fritz thought. Not warm, but I noticed a faint chemical odor on the package. You assumed it came from the delivery truck? Yes. I put the adhesive flake in an envelope. The bottom had been cut and resealed shortly before delivery, perhaps within an hour. That made Samuel Reed more interesting. But it did not answer Wolfe's question. A careful poisoner had planted a suspicious packet in a rare spice tin, then returned the tin exactly where Fritz would reach for it while preparing Wolfe's dinner. The powder was not the same substance used on Walter Crane. It was dangerous but not immediately deadly. It had been designed to alarm Fritz before it could enter any dish. The kitchen scare had been scheduled. I moved to the pantry and examined the missing delivery ledger's usual place. The rectangular clean mark remained on the flour-dusted table. Whoever removed it had known it recorded the arrival times and signatures. The kitchen window had since been secured, but the frame still bore the faint, greasy smear found after Crane's collapse. I scraped a sample into another envelope. Then I inspected the service entrance. The lock showed no damage. According to Fritz, only 4 people had entered the kitchen between noon and the moment he bolted the door. Fritz himself, Samuel Reed, claiming to collect the crate, Nora Bell, asking for cleaning cloths. Walter Crane, that last name required explanation. I turned. You told us. Crane went directly to the office. He did. Then when did he enter the kitchen? Fritz frowned. While you were telephoning Dr. Vollmer after he collapsed. I thought he had remained in the office. He had collapsed by then. I mean before that. When you first admitted him, Mr. Wolfe asked me to remove the spice tin. I left the office by the dining room door, Mr. Crane followed me into the hall. Why? He asked for water. But the cup was already on Wolfe's desk. Yes, what happened? I told him water was available in the office. He said he preferred fresh water and stepped into the kitchen before I could prevent him. For how long? Perhaps 20 seconds. Alone? No, I was with him. What did he touch? The edge of the central table. Nothing else. Did he approach the spice cabinet? No. The flour? No. The window? No. Did he drink? I poured water into an ordinary tumbler. He raised it but did not swallow. That was interesting enough to deserve a chair, but none was nearby. He pretended to drink? I cannot say. He placed the tumbler down almost full. Then he returned to the office and deliberately took Wolfe's cup. Yes. Did Crane see the paprika tin? It was on the central table. Did he react? Fritz considered. He looked at it. How? As if he recognized it. I wrote that down. Exact expression? Surprise, perhaps. Then he looked at me. Did he say anything? He asked whether something had spoiled. What did you answer? I said a delivery had been interfered with. Did you mention poison? No. Did you mention the white powder? No. Then he knew only that you had found something wrong. Yes. Crane had entered the kitchen, refused fresh water, inspected the altered tin, returned to the office, and taken Wolfe's cup after being warned not to touch it. His behavior had not been ordinary impatience. It had been a sequence. I asked Fritz about Nora Bell. She arrived at noon and left at 3:40. Did she enter the spice cabinet? No. Could she have taken the key? It remained in my pocket. Did she handle the delivery ledger? She signed. For what? A parcel of linen soap delivered for the back stairs. Same delivery as the spices. No. Different supplier. Did she know Walter Crane was coming? I do not know. Where does she live? Fritz gave me the address. Is she working today? No. She is now. I completed the kitchen search by examining every shelf, crate and waste container. Behind the flour bin I found a folded scrap of waxed paper. It matched the material around the powder packet. One edge carried a dark red smear. Paprika. The scrap had probably been cut from the packet wrapping when it was prepared. It should not have been in the kitchen if the tin had been altered elsewhere, unless someone had opened it again after delivery. I showed Fritz. He stared. This was not there yesterday. How can you know? I cleaned behind the bin in the morning, so it was placed after the delivery. Yes. By someone who entered the kitchen. His face tightened. Samuel Reed, or Nora Bell, no, or Crane. Fritz shook his head. Crane was never near the flower bin. According to you, I watched him, or you. Fritz's eyes flashed. I said, I'm listing possibilities, not choosing one. He turned away. At 10:55, I brought the tin, adhesive flake, greasy window sample, and waxed paper scrap to the office. Wolfe entered from the plant rooms at 11. He settled behind his desk, looked at the evidence envelopes, and rang for beer. Fritz brought it himself. Wolfe did not send him away. That was not forgiveness, but it was movement. I reported the search. When I reached the cut along the bottom of the tin, Wolfe asked, could it have occurred after the tin entered the house? Yes, but whoever did it would need tools, adhesive, and several minutes. Were such tools in the kitchen? Fritz has knives, clamps, and enough equipment to rebuild a restaurant, but the adhesive is not his. Fritz said, I do not use that compound. The scrap of waxed paper, Wolfe asked, found behind the flower bin. It matches the packet and carries paprika dust. Then either the packet was prepared in the kitchen or the scrap was planted there. Yes. Wolfe drank beer. List the persons who entered. I did. Fritz, Samuel Reed, formerly calling himself Thomas Vale, Nora Bell. Walter Crane. Wolfe looked at Fritz. You omitted Miss Bell and Mr. Crane from your first account. Fritz stood stiffly. I did not think either had opportunity. You were not asked to think. You were asked to report. Yes, sir. Did Miss Bell know where the rare ingredients were stored? She had seen the cabinet. Did Mr. Crane? He saw the tin on the table. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Mr. Crane entered the kitchen, requested water, declined to drink it, observed the altered tin, then returned to my office and drank from my cup. Yes, I said. He may have entered specifically to confirm Fritz had found the packet. Like Reed, Wolfe said. Both men checked. Or one checked and the other reacted. I handed Wolfe my notes. Reed asked Theodore whether Fritz had found everything in order. Crane asked whether something had spoiled. Both were interested in the delivery. Wolfe closed his eyes. I waited. Fritz remained beside the desk, troubled and silent. After half a minute, Wolfe said, a poisoner intending to kill through food would hide the substance where Fritz was unlikely to discover it. Such as mixed into the spice, I said. Yes. Instead, the packet remained wrapped, so it was never intended to be used. Not by Fritz. Then why put it in the tin? To produce a particular action. Cooking the kitchen. Correct. Fritz looked at him, Wolfe continued. The person knew you would recognize the odor, become alarmed, halt the meal, and isolate the room. That reaction was not an inconvenience. It was the objective, to make me appear responsible, partly. More importantly, to control movement inside the house. I said, once Fritz locked the kitchen, everyone focused on the deliveries. And the office was less protected. Wolfe nodded. The powder drew Fritz out of the kitchen and into this room. It occupied my attention. It sent Archie repeatedly through the hall. The household routine was disrupted at the exact time Walter Crane arrived. So someone created confusion to reach the cup. Yes. Samuel Reed? Possibly. Crane's false assistant? Possibly. Nora Bell? Possibly. You are generous with possibilities again. I am waiting for facts to become less shy. Fritz said quietly. The odor was meant for me. Wolfe looked at him. The purse. Knew I would recognize it. Yes. Fritz's hands tightened. And knew why. Wolfe's voice sharpened. You will explain that now. Fritz did not answer. Wolfe pushed his beer glass away. The powder was not chosen merely because it was bitter. It was chosen because it carried a memory. The tasting spoon and the message confirm it. Whoever planned this knew of your first kitchen and knew the smell would frighten you. Fritz stared at the floor. I said, was Samuel Reed connected to that kitchen? No. Nora Bell? No. Walter Crane? Fritz hesitated. I do not know. Wolfe watched him. That is not a denial. No. The telephone rang. I answered. Dr. Hale spoke from the hospital. Crane is conscious. Can he talk? For a few minutes. What does he say? He insists on speaking with Nero Wolfe privately. I looked at Wolfe. He also says, Hale continued, that the poison was not supposed to kill him. That sentence changed the room. I repeated it. Fritz lifted his head. Wolfe's eyes opened fully. Ask him who supplied it, Wolfe said. I relayed the question. Hale left the telephone. He returned less than a minute later. Crane refuses to name anyone. He says, must first find the tin behind the flower. I looked toward the kitchen. We found it. Then Crane says Wolfe should examine the bottom. We did. Another pause. Hale spoke again. He says, now he will know the kitchen was only the invitation. The line went quiet. Doctor? Crane has lost consciousness again. The nurse is calling me. He hung up. I replaced the receiver. Wolfe looked at the altered tin. The kitchen was the invitation, I said. Yes. To Mr. Crane's performance, Fritz said. Then he knew the packet was there. Certainly. He may have arranged it, perhaps, and he poisoned himself. With assistance or preparation, I sat down. Why stage a near-fatal collapse in your office? Wolfe looked at the thin cut along the bottom of the tin, to compel me to investigate a matter he feared to describe openly. That is an expensive way to hire a detective. Walter Crane believed ordinary words were unsafe. And the cup, by drinking from mine, he converted his private danger into an attack upon me. He knew Inspector Kramer would treat the matter seriously, and he knew I would not ignore poison placed within my household. Fritz looked stricken. He used me, yes. Then the threat concerning the first kitchen. Wolfe's face hardened. That was not part of Mr. Crane's protection. It was the answer from the person he feared. Outside, a truck passed along West 35th Street, rattling the office windows. The spice tin sat on Wolfe's desk with its perfect top seal and wounded bottom. Careful man had opened it where no buyer would look, planted a powder meant to be recognized, and returned it to the one shelf Fritz was certain to reach. The poison was not hidden to remain secret. It was hidden to be found. Walter Crane had used Wolfe's cup to turn that discovery into a case. Someone else had used Fritz's oldest fear to warn us what would happen if we continued. Chapter 4. The Secret Fritz. Protected Fritz came into the office at 11:06, carrying the old silver tasting spoon on a folded napkin. He placed it beside the altered spice tin and remained standing. That was how I knew he had decided to speak. Fritz normally entered Wolfe's office with food, beer, or an opinion concerning people who misused kitchen equipment. When he arrived carrying an object from his past, without a tray beneath it, the occasion had no recipe. Wolfe sat behind his desk, having returned from the plant rooms precisely at 11. A spray of pale orchids stood in the vase near his right hand. Morning sunlight touched the petals, and the old blackened spoon without improving either. I was at my desk with the hospital report on Walter Crane. Crane remained alive but weak. Dr. Hale had forbidden further questioning, and Inspector Kramer had stationed a police out the hospital room, officially to protect the patient and unofficially to prevent Wolfe from getting there first. Fritz looked at Wolfe. I will tell you what I know. Wolfe's expression did not soften. You should have done so yesterday. Yes, sir? Sit. Fritz took the chair near the end of Wolfe's desk. He sat stiffly, with both hands resting on his knees. Wolfe said, begin with the spoon. Fritz looked at it. It belonged to Peter Doran. Who was he? A cook. Where? The Harcourt Hotel. I had heard of the Harcourt. It had once stood on Madison Avenue, 12 stories of marble, brass, thick carpets, and expensive discretion. It closed nearly 20 years earlier, after a fire damaged the upper floors. The building had later been demolished, and Walter Crane had purchased the land through one of his companies. Wolfe said, when did you work there? 26 years ago. I was young. Peter Doran was the second cook. I worked under him. What position did Walter Crane hold? Assistant manager at first. Later, general manager. And the compound? Fritz drew a breath. It was used in the hotel's flavoring room. A minute amount was added to certain bitter extracts. The bottle was kept locked because too much could cause severe illness. Amaragentine concentrate? Yes. You recognized the smell in the spice tin? Yes. Immediately? Yes. Wolfe leaned back. Describe the fatal poisoning. Fritz's eyes remained on the spoon. There was a private dinner in the hotel's north dining room. 12 guests attended, businessmen, lawyers, and 2 city officials. The meal was prepared under strict instructions from Mr. Crane because one guest had threatened to cancel an important agreement. What agreement? I did not know then, and now? I believe it concerned hotel ownership and building contracts. I picked up my pencil. Fritz continued. The final course was a cold pear custard with a bitter herbal syrup. Peter prepared the syrup. I helped strain it. The compound was kept in a small dark bottle in the flavoring room. How much did Peter use? Wolfe asked. 3 drops for the full service. Dangerous? Not at that amount. What happened? One guest, Arthur Bellows, collapsed before leaving the table. He died in less than 20 minutes. 5 others became ill. Cause: the bitter compound had been added in a large quantity to one serving and in smaller amounts to the common syrup. Why both? Fritz looked at Wolfe. To make the death appear accidental. If only Bellows had been poisoned, murder would have been obvious. By making others ill, the culprit created the appearance that Peter had mishandled the entire bottle. Was the bottle found? Yes. Empty, beneath Peter's work table. Fingerprints? Peter's. That was expected if he used it. Yes. Who accused him, Mr. Crane? The office stayed quiet for a second. Fritz's voice became flatter, as though he had repeated the next part too often in his own mind. Crane entered the kitchen before the police arrived. He asked who had prepared the syrup. Peter answered. Crane said the hotel would cooperate fully and that no one should touch anything. Then he found the empty bottle beneath Peter's table. Found it conveniently? I asked. Yes. Had you seen it there before? No. Did Peter? No. Wolfe said. Was Peter arrested? Yes. He insisted he had returned the bottle to the locked flavoring cabinet. The cabinet key had remained on the head chef's chain. Who else could enter? The head chef, Crane, the hotel pharmacist, and the night manager. Were they questioned? Briefly, was Peter charged with criminal negligence first. Later, after Arthur Bellows died, with manslaughter. Was he guilty? No. Fritz said it without hesitation. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. How do you know? Because Peter had discovered the bottle was nearly empty before the dinner, he told me. He refused to use it and prepared the syrup from another sealed supply. I stopped writing. You saw the sealed supply, I asked. Yes, I opened it for him. Did you tell the police? Fritz's face tightened. I tried, Wolfe said. Tried? Crane stopped me before I reached them. How? He took me into the hotel office. He said Peter had confessed privately to careless handling and that public contradiction would only harm the hotel and Peter's family. Did you believe him? No. Then why? Remain silent. Fritz stared at his hands. Crane showed me papers. What papers? Immigration papers, employment records. He said there were irregularities in my position and that I could be arrested or sent away if I interfered. Wolfe's lips pressed together. Were there irregularities? Minor ones. Nothing criminal. I was frightened. So you said nothing? Yes. I had known Fritz for years. I had seen him face armed men, angry policemen, kitchen fires, and Wolfe before breakfast. The thought of him young, cornered in a hotel office, and frightened into silence did not fit the man I knew. That was exactly why it was true. What happened to Peter? I asked. He was released before trial because the evidence was not sufficient. But the newspapers had already named him. No hotel would employ him. His wife became ill. His son was removed from school after other boys called his father a poisoner. And Peter, he died 8 months later. How? Fritz's answer was quiet. He walked into the river. Wolfe closed his eyes. Fritz looked again at the spoon. This was found in his coat pocket. His wife gave it to me after the funeral. Why? Wolfe asked. Because Peter had used it when he taught me to taste sauces properly. She said he had wanted me to keep it. And your promise? Mrs. Doran asked me never to speak publicly about the scandal. She feared the family would be dragged through the newspapers again. Peter's son had changed his name. She wanted the matter buried. You agreed? Yes, even though silence preserved the lie. Yes. Wolfe opened his eyes. An unfortunate promise. I know. No, you know it became inconvenient. That is not the same as knowing it was wrong. Fritz's face showed hurt. Wolfe continued. A promise to protect the innocent may be honorable. A promise that protects the guilty is not improved by grief. I did not know who was guilty. You knew Peter was not, yes. That should have been enough. Fritz lowered his head. I said, Did Crane suppress the investigation? Yes. He dismissed the head chef, the pharmacist, 2 waiters, and everyone who had questioned the official till account. The hotel paid settlements to the sick guests. The Bellows family received a larger payment and withdrew its demand for a public inquiry. Then Crane was promoted, Wolfe said. Within a year. He became a partner in the management company. Later, he bought several hotel properties and warehouses. That was the beginning of his fortune. Did you ever confront him? No. Did he know you suspected him? I think so. Why, he sent me money once. When? After Peter died. How much? $5,000. I whistled softly. What did you do with it? I returned it. To Crane, to the hotel. Without a message. Did he send it again? No. Wolfe's fingers moved against the arm of his chair. The tasting spoon delivered yesterday carried a threat referring to the first kitchen and the man who spoke. Yes. Who was the man who spoke? Peter. Then the sender knew details never made public. Yes. How many people knew Peter had accused someone? His wife. Me. The head chef. Crane. Anyone else? Possibly the hotel pharmacist. Names. The head chef was William Hart. The pharmacist was Leonard Shaw. Hart died 12 years ago. I do not know about Shaw. His wife. Dead. His son Fritz hesitated. Alive, I believe. Name, he changed it. From what to what? I promised Mrs. Doran. Wolfe's expression became dangerous. Fritz met his eyes. Then he said, Peter's son was named Andrew Doran. He later called himself Samuel Reed. That put the kitchen deliveryman into the old hotel. I said, the dark-haired man who brought the spice tin. Yes. You recognized him? Not at first. He was 9 years old when I last saw him. But after Theodore described him and after the spoon arrived, I understood. Why didn't you tell us? Because I had promised. Wolfe made a disgusted sound. You allowed a dead woman's fear to govern a living danger. Fritz flinched. I said, did Samuel Reed know you worked here? Yes. Mrs. Doran wrote to me years ago after seeing a newspaper item about Mr. Wolfe. Did Reed ever contact you? Once, 10 years ago. He asked whether I would sign a statement clearing his father. Did you? No. Why? Fritz looked miserable. I still had no proof. You had your own eyes. I had only Peter's word and the sealed bottle I helped open. That is evidence, I said. Not enough to name the guilty person, Wolfe said. What did Reed do after you refused? He said I was no better than Crane. That probably hurt. Yes. Did he threaten you? No. He left. Could Reed have planted the packet? Yes. Could he have poisoned my cup? Fritz's answer came quickly. No. How do you know? He wanted the truth about his father. He would not poison you. That is belief, not knowledge. I know what he wanted. You have not seen him in 10 years. Fritz remained silent. Wolfe looked at the tasting spoon. Did Reed possess it? Mrs. Doran had it after Peter's death. She may have given it to her son before she died. Then he could have sent the parcel. Yes, I said. He also knew the smell would force Fritz to remember the Harcourt kitchen, and knew the tin would be found, Wolfe said. Fritz turned toward him. Then Samuel planted the compound as a message. Possibly, not as poison. Certainly not as the poison used on Mr. Crane. That was aconitine. Yes. Fritz sat straighter, relieved to have one distinction made. Wolfe did not permit the relief to last. But Mr. Reed entered this house under a false name, approached my cup, removed the delivery ledger, and vanished. We do not know he removed the ledger. He had opportunity. So did Nora Bell and Walter Crane, I said. Wolfe nodded. Tell me about Miss Bell. Fritz frowned. She is a good worker. That is not biography. She was recommended by an agency. Did she ever work at the Harcourt? No. She is too young. Family connection? None that I know. Crane. She saw him when he entered the kitchen. Did they recognize each other? Fritz thought. Nora dropped a polishing cloth when she saw him. You omitted that. I did not understand its importance. Your understanding has been expensive. Fritz looked down. I said, where was Nora when Crane asked for fresh water? In the service hall. Could she hear your conversation? Yes. Did Crane speak to her? No. Did she leave before he collapsed? Yes. Through the service entrance. That gave her access to the kitchen window and ledger. Yes. Wolfe looked at me. Find her. I reached for the phone, but Fritz spoke. There is more. Wolfe waited. Fritz pointed to the silver spoon. The blackening on the bowl was not there when Peter's wife gave it to me. When did you notice it? Yesterday. What caused it? I do not know, Wolfe said. Silver darkens when exposed to certain substances. Sulfur compounds, I said. And some poisons, Wolfe replied. I picked up the spoon with a cloth and examined it beneath the desk lamp. The black stain covered only the inside of the bowl, as though it had been dipped into liquid. Could it be aconitine? I asked. Unlikely. Send it to Dr. Hale. Fritz said. The spoon may have been used to measure something, or to carry a sample, Wolfe said. The telephone rang before I could place the call, I answered. Kramer said. Crane is awake. For how long? Long enough to deny poisoning Wolfe. Generous. He says he knew about the spice tin and expected Fritz to find it. I looked at Wolfe. Did he name Samuel Reed? No. He refuses to name anyone until Wolfe agrees to take the case. Wolfe has been investigating since Crane fell on the rug. He wants the agreement spoken. I covered the receiver. Crane wants you to accept him formally as a client. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Ask Inspector Kramer to bring him here. I uncovered the receiver. Wolfe says, bring Crane to the brownstone. He is in a hospital bed. Then bring the bed. Kramer expressed himself and hung up. I reported Crane's admission. Fritz stared at the spice tin. He knew Samuel would plant it. Perhaps, Wolfe said. Then Mr. Crane arranged the message, or permitted it. But why? To force the past into this house without naming it over a telephone or in a letter. I said, Crane feared someone listening, or feared the evidence would be destroyed before he reached me. Fritz looked at Wolfe. He came because of the Harcourt poisoning. Yes, and he used my memory to make you investigate. Apparently, Fritz's face hardened. Then he knew I would be blamed. Perhaps he considered that acceptable. That sounded like Walter Crane. I telephoned Nora Bell's apartment. No answer. The agency that employed her said she had not reported for work and had sent no message. Samuel Reed's last known address was a rooming house near the Hudson Freight Yards. The manager said Reed had checked out the night before Crane came to the brownstone. 2 missing witnesses, 1 wounded businessman, 1 old scandal. I gave Wolfe the results. He closed his eyes. The altered tin was placed where Fritz would certainly find it, he said. The compound was chosen because Fritz would recognize it. The tasting spoon tied the warning to Peter Doran. Mr. Crane arrived at the arranged hour, confirmed the tin had been opened, and drank from my cup. To stage an attack on you, I said. Yes. Why use real poison to convince both me and the police? He nearly killed himself. He miscalculated the amount or the poisoner altered the dose. I looked at him. You think Crane may have planned a mild collapse, but someone made it more dangerous. That would explain his statement that the poison was not supposed to kill him. Fritz said, Samuel would not do that, perhaps not. Nora, unknown. Crane's assistant Ellis, missing and false. Wolfe opened his eyes. Archie, the old hotel poisoning did more than destroy Peter Doran. It created Walter Crane's fortune. Men rarely build wealth upon a buried crime without continuing to guard the grave. You think Crane's blackmailer discovered the truth, or participated in it, and Crane came here to expose the culprit? Perhaps because the culprit had begun eliminating witnesses. Fritz's face went pale. Samuel, possibly. And Nora Bell, find her before deciding what she is. Fritz rose. May I prepare lunch? Wolfe regarded him. You have told the truth. All I know, not all you fear. Fritz hesitated, then shook his head. No, I fear Samuel has spent his life seeking justice, and has found revenge instead. Wolfe's expression softened by a degree only I would notice. You may prepare lunch. Fritz picked up the spice tin, but Wolfe stopped him. Leave it. Fritz nodded and went to the kitchen. A moment later we heard the controlled sounds of pans, knives, and cupboard doors. The house had regained one of its proper rhythms, but not its peace. I sat at my desk. So, Fritz locked the kitchen to protect us and protect the secret. Yes. He feared the powder might cause another poisoning. Yes. He also feared that naming it would connect Crane to Peter Doran and expose his own silence. Guilt fear, Wolfe corrected. The guilt belongs partly to him, but the crime does not. I looked at the blackened spoon, the wounded tin, and the empty chair where Fritz had sat. Walter Crane had buried a hotel scandal and built a fortune over it. Samuel Reed had grown up under his father's disgrace. Fritz had carried the truth for 26 years. Believing silence protected a family that silence had already ruined. Wolfe reached for the bell to order beer. The first poisoning was blamed upon an innocent cook, he said. The second was arranged inside this house to remind Fritz of the first, and the third. Wolfe looked toward the kitchen. That, Archie, is what we must prevent. Chapter 5. The guest who chose the cup. Walter Crane had been offered a cup of water before he touched Wolfe's. That fact had been sitting in the case from the beginning, looking innocent. At 9:30 the next morning, I put 2 cups on Wolfe's desk and began rebuilding the scene. One was Wolfe's heavy cream-colored cup with the broad handle. The police still had the original, so I borrowed its twin from Fritz. The other was a plain guest tumbler from the dining room cabinet. I placed Wolfe's cup at the right corner of the desk, near the chair where he could reach it without effort. The guest tumbler went on the small table beside the red leather chair. Wolfe entered from the plant rooms at 11, saw my arrangement, and stopped. "What is this? History? It resembles the disorder. I'm reconstructing Crane's visit. You are obstructing my desk. I need the original positions. You need discipline." He lowered himself into his chair while glaring at both cups. I sat in the red leather chair, then stood and crossed toward him. "Crane entered here," I said. "Fritz had already placed your cup on the desk. When Crane asked for water, Fritz took him into the kitchen and gave him a fresh tumbler, which he did not drink." "Correct." "Then Crane returned, sat here, argued about the delay, stood, ignored the guest tumbler, and reached across your desk for your cup." Wolfe looked at the distance. From the red chair, Crane had needed to lean forward and extend his arm past the corner of the desk. It was not the nearest drink. It was not the most natural one. It was not even a polite one. Wolfe said. "Yes, deliberately. That is how it looks. Appearances remain untrustworthy, but sometimes they improve under measurement." I took out the notes Fritz had given me. "Fritz says the guest tumbler was already beside Crane when he entered the office the second time. Crane looked at it, then at your cup. Did he touch the tumbler?" "No." "Did he ask whether it was clean?" "No." "Did he ask what was in my cup?" "No." "He merely took it?" "Yes." Wolfe closed his eyes. I waited. After a moment he said, "Where is Miss Bell?" "That is my next appointment. Find her before lunch." I had planned to find her before dinner. Lunch. He picked up the orchid report and reopened it, which meant the discussion was over until I improved it. Nora Bell had not vanished because of guilt. She had vanished because her landlord had told her 2 policemen were waiting outside her apartment. I found her at 10:40 in a boarding house near Washington Square, using the name Nora Blake and wearing a hat too large for her. She opened the door only after I identified myself and promised that Inspector Kramer was not standing behind me. The room was small, clean, and cold. Nora was 28, dark-haired, narrow-faced, and more composed than frightened people usually are. "You should not have run," I said. "I did not run. You changed your name and address overnight. I moved temporarily. That is running with better grammar. She did not invite me to sit, so I did anyway. Why were the police looking for you?" "I do not know." "You worked in Wolfe's house the day Crane was poisoned?" "Yes." "You entered the kitchen?" "Yes." "You saw Crane?" Her eyes shifted. "Yes." "You recognized him?" "No." "You dropped a polishing cloth." I was startled. "By what?" "By seeing a stranger in the service hall. Fritz says you looked directly at Crane." She folded her hands. "I had seen his photograph." "Where?" "In a newspaper." "Why remember it?" "Because my mother hated him. That brought the room into focus." "What was your mother's name?" "Margaret Bell." "Did she work at the Harcourt Hotel?" Nora looked toward the window. "She was a dining room maid." "On the night Arthur Bellows died?" "Yes." I took out my notebook. "She saw something." Nora shook her head. "She heard something." Another refusal. "She knew Peter Doran was innocent." Nora's mouth tightened. "She knew Mr. Doran had prepared the syrup correctly. She carried the dishes from the kitchen." "Did she see Crane enter?" "Yes." "Before or after the poisoning?" "Before." "What did he do?" Nora sat on the edge of the bed. "He stopped beside the service table and changed one of the dessert plates." "Changed it how?" "He moved a plate from the end of the tray to the center." "Did your mother know which guest received it?" "Arthur Bellows." "Did she tell the police?" "She tried." "Crane threatened her." "With what?" "My father had been accused of stealing from the hotel. Crane said he would have him arrested." "Had he stolen anything?" "No." "Did she remain silent?" "Yes, like Fritz." Nora looked at me sharply. "Do not judge her. I am collecting a pattern." She lowered her eyes. "After Bellows died, Crane dismissed her. My father lost his work too. They never recovered. My mother told me the truth before she died." "Did she know Samuel Reed?" She knew Peter Doran's wife, did you? I met Samuel 6 months ago. How? He found me. That was the first good answer she had given without resistance. He was collecting statements from people connected to the hotel. He wanted to clear his father's name. Did you agree to help? Yes. Did you take the job at Wolfe's house because of him? Her silence answered. Why? Samuel knew Fritz worked there. He believed Fritz would never speak unless forced to remember. So you watched the kitchen routine? Yes. You told Samuel where Fritz kept rare ingredients? Yes. You told him about Wolfe's cup? No, I studied her. Nora, this case already has 2 poisons, 1 false deliveryman, 1 missing ledger, and a businessman who nearly died. A denial needs more support. She looked at me. Walter Crane asked about the cup. When? Before he arrived for the appointment. That was worth writing carefully. How did he speak with you? He came to the rear service entrance the morning before. Crane himself, yes. What did he say? He knew my mother's name. He knew I had helped Samuel contact old hotel employees. He said Samuel had become dangerous and would destroy all of us unless I cooperated. What did he want? He asked questions about Mr. Wolfe's routine, exact questions. Nora closed her eyes briefly. He asked where Mr. Wolfe sat, whether Fritz brought him water at the same hour, whether the cup always stood in the same place, and whether Mr. Wolfe used the same cup every day. Did you answer? Some which? I said Fritz brought water after the orchid session and placed it on the right corner of the desk. Did you tell him the cup was distinctive? Yes. Why? He threatened to accuse me of helping Samuel poison the spice tin. You were helping Samuel, not with poison. He said the compound would be wrapped and harmless unless opened. It was only meant to make Fritz remember. Who cut the tin? Samuel. Who returned it to the shelf? I did. That repaired the problem of exact placement. You had Fritz's key? I took an impression weeks earlier. Samuel made a copy. Who removed the delivery ledger? I did. Why? It contained Samuel's signature. Samuel Reed? He signed his real name by mistake when the shipment first arrived, then returned as Thomas Vale to collect the crate. I took the ledger before the police could see it. Where is it? In my suitcase. She handed it over after a pause. Samuel Reed's signature appeared at 2:16 beside the spice delivery. At 4:12, a second line listed Thomas Vale collecting an empty crate. Did Samuel touch Wolfe's cup? No. How can you know? I was in the service hall when he entered. He took the crate and left. Theodore saw him near the side table. He bent for the crate. He never touched the cup. Did you? Did Crane? Not in the kitchen. Fritz watched him. I put the ledger in my pocket. Then who added the aconitine? I do not know. Why did you disappear? Because Crane's assistant came to my apartment, Martin Ellis. I knew him as Harrison. Dr. Hale had said Crane spoke the word Harrison while barely conscious. What is his full name? James Harrison. He was assistant manager at the Harcourt under Crane. Still alive after 26 years. He is 64. Was he present at the old poisoning? Yes. My mother believed he helped Crane suppress the witnesses. Did he threaten you? He said the next cup would not be measured. What did that mean? I did not know. I knew enough to dislike it. Where can I find him? He used an office near Crane's warehouses on West Street. Did Samuel know him? Yes. Samuel believed Harrison was the one who placed the empty bottle under Peter's table. Did Crane know Samuel was investigating? Yes. Then why did Crane come to Wolfe? Nora looked at me. He said Harrison had begun blackmailing him. That fitted Crane's original story. For the old hotel poisoning? Yes. Harrison demanded money and control of one of Crane's warehouses. He also threatened to reveal that Crane built his first fortune from payments made after Bellows died. Did Crane tell you that? He wanted me to carry a message to Samuel. He said he was ready to expose Harrison if Samuel stopped threatening him. Did you deliver it? No. Why? Because Crane was lying. He did not want justice. He wanted Samuel brought into the open. I stood. You are coming to the brownstone? No. Yes. The police will arrest me. Possibly. But Wolfe will ask better questions first. She looked at the suitcase. May I bring it? You may bring anything that does not contain another spice tin. We reached West 35th Street at 12:12, which was later than Wolfe's instruction and earlier than lunch. Fritz admitted us through the front door. When he saw Nora, His face became stern. You took the ledger. Yes. You lied to me. Yes. You entered my cabinet. Yes. He looked ready to forbid her every kitchen in New York. Wolfe called from the office. Bring her. Nora sat in the red leather chair. I gave Wolfe the full account, including her mother, Samuel Reed, Crane's visit to the service entrance, his questions about Wolfe's cup, the copied key, the ledger, and James Harrison. Wolfe listened with his eyes closed. When I finished, he opened them and looked at Nora. Mr. Crane asked whether I always drank from the same cup in the same place. Yes. Did he ask what the cup contained? Water with lemon. Did he ask how much I drank? He asked whether you emptied it. What did you say? That you usually drank only part. Did he ask whether Fritz tasted it? No. Did he ask whether anyone else used it? I said, no one would dare. I said, Crane proved you wrong. Wolfe ignored me. Miss Bell, did Mr. Crane say why he needed this information? He said he wanted to leave something in the cup. Fritz stiffened. What? Wolfe asked. He did not say. He told me it would not harm you. Did you believe him? No, yet you did not warn us. I was afraid Samuel would be blamed for the spice tin. Wolfe's expression hardened. Fear has enjoyed a prosperous season in this house. Nora looked down. Wolfe continued. Did Mr. Crane intend to drink from my cup himself? I think so. Why? He said. Wolfe must see me fall where he expected to be sitting. That sentence settled the central question. Crane had chosen the cup because the choice was part of his design, I said. He planned the collapse. Wolfe nodded. Apparently, Fritz said, but the poison nearly killed him, because the cup did not contain what he expected. The doorbell rang. It was Kramer, arriving with a laboratory report and no invitation. I brought him in. He saw Nora and reached for his notebook. You found her. She found the red chair comfortable. Kramer looked at Wolfe. The lab has more on the cup. Proceed. The aconitine was mixed with a trace of glycerin and lemon oil. The poison had been added in a small wax capsule that dissolved in water. How long to dissolve? I asked. Through 5 minutes. Could Crane have carried the capsule? Yes. Could he control the dose? No. Once dissolved, concentration would vary, depending on how much water moved. Looked at Nora. Did Crane poison himself? She went pale. I do not know. Wolfe said. Crane intended to place something harmless in my cup, then drink from it publicly and collapse. Kramer stared. You have proof. Nora Bell heard him describe the intention. Kramer turned to her. You will give a statement? Yes. He looked back at Wolfe. What harmless substance? Possibly a medicinal compound producing brief weakness or vomiting. Something dramatic but controllable. The bitter powder from the spice tin, no. That was Samuel Reed's message to Fritz. Kramer's eyebrows rose. I gave him the condensed version. He listened, took the delivery ledger, and called Nora several things that were technically polite but not kind. Then he said, Crane poisoned himself to accuse Fritz. Wolfe shook his head. Not Fritz. The cup came from the kitchen. Fritz filled it. Crane's plan required the spice packet to be discovered first. That made the kitchen suspicious, but his choice of my cup made me the apparent intended victim. So he wanted us to blame the deliveryman. More likely James Harrison. Kramer sat. Crane hires Wolfe by pretending someone tried to poison Wolfe, and he makes himself the injured witness. Yes. Why not simply tell Wolfe Harrison was blackmailing him? Because Crane feared Harrison would learn of the consultation, or destroy evidence. He wanted the inquiry to begin as a police matter centered inside this house. Kramer looked at the laboratory report, but the dose was too dangerous for a performance. Exactly, Nora said. Crane told me what he planned to use would only make him ill. What substance? Kramer asked. He called it a heart draft. Dr. Hale's report showed no harmless heart draft. It showed aconitine. Wolfe leaned back. Mr. Crane expected my cup to contain something that would produce a controlled collapse. Instead, someone substituted a lethal poison. Who knew his plan? I asked. Nora Bell, Kramer said. She flinched. Samuel Reed may have known, I said. Harrison could have learned it. Crane's false assistant drove him here. Wolfe nodded. Also Fritz unintentionally. By observing Crane's refusal of the first tumbler and his interest in the altered tin, Fritz said, I did not understand. No, Kramer asked. Did Crane place the capsule in the cup? That remains uncertain, Wolfe said. I reconstructed the scene again. Crane enters the kitchen and asks for fresh water. He may have intended to place the harmless capsule in that tumbler. But Fritz watched him, Wolfe said. So he returns to the office. While I answer the door or move through the hall, Harrison enters behind him and reaches the cup. Kramer shook his head. Harrison was supposed to be in the car, which gave him cover, Nora said quietly. Harrison always wore gloves. We looked at her. At the Harcourt, she continued. My mother said he wore thin kitchen gloves when he handled the dessert tray. Fritz stared at her. Did Margaret tell Peter? She tried. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. The same man may have handled both poisons. Kramer said. After 26? Murderers can be patient when protecting prosperity. The telephone rang, I answered. Dr. Hale said. Walter Crane was conscious and demanding to see Wolfe. Can he speak? Yes, he is stronger. Ask him what he expected to be in Wolfe's cup. Hale left the line. He returned after nearly a minute. He says digitalis tincture, heavily diluted, enough to produce weakness and irregular pulse. Not death. Who supplied it? He refuses to say. Ask whether James Harrison knew. Another pause. Hale returned. Crane became agitated. He says Harrison prepared the capsule. That did it. I reported to the room. Kramer stood. Harrison supplied the capsule and drove Crane here. He substituted aconitine for the harmless drug. Likely, Wolfe said. Then I'll pick him up. At which address? I gave him the West Street office. Kramer headed for the door. Wolfe said, Inspector. He stopped. Do not assume Mr. Harrison acted merely to kill Crane. What else? He knew Crane would choose my cup. If Crane died, the police would investigate an attempted murder of me, a poisoned guest, and Fritz's hidden compound. Harrison expected the confusion to bury the hotel connection. Kramer frowned. It didn't, no, because Mr. Crane chose the correct cup and received the wrong poison. Kramer left with Nora under official escort. She went willingly. After Wolfe told her truth was now the only protection she had not already wasted. Fritz remained in the office. He looked at the duplicate cup on Wolfe's desk. Mr. Crane used your routine. Yes. He allowed me to appear responsible. Yes. And Samuel allowed me to be frightened. Yes. Fritz's face hardened. They both believed the truth justified using this house. Many people believe their need improves their manners. I removed the guest tumbler from the side table, so Crane staged the attack. Wolfe shook his head. He staged a deception. Harrison converted it into an attack, and Harrison expected Crane to die. Yes, why did Crane survive? He took only one swallow, and most of the liquid spilled. Luck, an undignified but useful element. Fritz picked up Wolfe's duplicate cup. Shall I destroy these? Certainly not. You will drink from them again when they have been examined. Fritz carried both cups toward the kitchen with the solemnity of a priest removing dangerous relics. I sat at my desk. Crane ignored the drink meant for him and chose yours because he knew exactly where it would be. Yes. He expected a mild drug placed by Harrison. Yes, Harrison replaced it with aconitine. Likely. And now Kramer is hunting him. Wolfe reached for the bell. Then Mr. Harrison will either flee or seek the one person who can still expose the original poisoning. Samuel Reed, precisely. The first poisoning had destroyed Samuel's father. The second had nearly killed Walter Crane. The third attempt, if Harrison was allowed to make it, would be directed at the man who had forced the old crime back into daylight. Wolfe rang for lunch. This time, before serving anything, Fritz would inspect every cup, not because he doubted himself, because Walter Crane had proved that a guest could choose the right cup and still be wrong about what waited inside. Chapter 6. The second packet. Samuel Reed entered the brownstone at 10:14 in the morning, wearing a dark overcoat, a bruised cheek, and the expression of a man who had spent the night discovering that revenge was better planned from a distance. I had found him in a freight yard boarding house near 12th Avenue after 3 hours of asking questions among men who regarded names as private property. He had tried to leave through the rear window. The window had resisted, and I had persuaded him that talking to Wolfe was safer than falling 2 floors into a barrel of broken bottles. Fritz opened the front door. For a moment, neither man spoke. Samuel was 35, lean, dark-haired, and built like his father in the old photograph Fritz had finally shown us. The same narrow eyes, the same serious mouth. Time had taken the boy Peter Doran left behind and sharpened him into a man who expected betrayal before conversation. Fritz stepped aside. "You may enter." Samuel looked at him. "That is generous. It is Mr. Wolfe's house. You helped make it mine." Fritz's face tightened, but he closed the door without answering. I led Samuel into the office. Wolfe sat behind his desk with a glass of beer at his right hand. The old tasting spoon, the altered spice tin, and the copied delivery ledger had been arranged before him. Walter Crane's empty chair faced the desk like a witness awaiting recall. Samuel stopped when he saw the spoon. "You kept it," he said to Fritz. "Yes, for 26 years. Yes, and your voice for the same period." Wolfe raised a hand. "You will sit, Mr. Reed." Samuel looked at him. "I did not come voluntarily. Neither do most useful people." He took the red leather chair. Fritz remained near the door. Wolfe said, "You altered the paprika tin." Samuel's eyes moved to it. "I inserted a packet through the bottom." "Yes." "Containing Emergentin concentrate." "Yes." "To make Fritz recognize it, why not send him a letter?" He had ignored letters before. Fritz said, "You wrote only once. Once should have been enough." Wolfe's voice sharpened. "You entered my kitchen under a false name." "Yes." "You asked whether Fritz had found everything in order." "Yes." "You used the name Thomas Vale." "Yes." "You removed nothing?" "No, the delivery ledger." Samuel glanced at me. "Nora took it." "You knew she would?" "Yes." "You and Miss Bell conspired to place the packet in my household." Samuel leaned forward. "We placed no poison in food. The compound was sealed. Fritz was certain to find it before he used the paprika. That confidence was reckless. He checks every special spice." Fritz said quietly. "You remembered." Samuel turned toward him. "I remembered everything." The silence that followed belonged to Peter Doran. Wolfe broke it. "Who supplied the compound?" Samuel looked back at him. "A stranger." Fritz stiffened. "What stranger?" I asked. "I never learned his name. That answer has poor bones. It described him. About 40, medium height, grey coat, dark hat. He wore glasses with pale rims and spoke like an educated clerk." "When did he contact you?" 10 days ago. "Where?" "At a tavern near the freight yards." "How did he find you?" "He said he knew I was investigating the Harcourt poisoning." "Did he mention Crane?" "Yes." "Did he mention Fritz?" "Yes." Samuel looked at the silver spoon. He knew Fritz worked for Wolfe. He knew Nora had obtained a position in the house. He said Crane was preparing to silence the remaining witnesses, and that Fritz would never speak unless frightened into it. "Did he suggest the spice tin?" "Yes." "Did he give you the compound?" "He gave me a sealed vial. The waxed paper, the adhesive, and $200. "Only 200? "I did not do it for the money." "Then why accept it?" "Because refusing it would not improve my father's name." Wolfe regarded him. A poor answer. Samuel's mouth tightened. "The stranger said Walter Crane had arranged an appointment with you," he said. "The packet must be discovered before Crane arrived. Once Fritz recognized the smell, Crane would be forced to discuss the Harcourt scandal." "Why would Crane be forced?" "He said Crane feared public exposure." "Did the stranger tell you to send the tasting spoon?" "No." Samuel looked at Fritz. "I sent it." "And the threatening message?" I asked. His eyes shifted. "I wrote the first sentence." "Which first sentence?" "Fritz remembers the first kitchen." The remainder said he should remember what happened to the man who spoke. Samuel said nothing. "You did not write that?" "No." Fritz's face changed. "Then who added it?" "I don't know. I wrapped the spoon with a card containing only the first sentence. I left the parcel with a messenger service. So someone opened it, added a threat, and resealed it." "Yes." Wolfe pushed his lips forward. "The stranger, possibly." "Did you tell him about the spoon?" "No." "Who knew you possessed it?" "Nora." "Perhaps Crane. My mother once wrote to him demanding that he clear my father's name. She mentioned the spoon." I said, "And James Harrison?" Samuel's expression hardened. He knew every detail of the old poisoning. "Did you meet him recently?" "Twice." "Where?" "Crane's West Street warehouse." "What did he say?" "That my father had killed Bellows and I should stop digging." "Did he showed me a pistol?" "That qualifies." Wolfe said, "The stranger paid you to add the packet. Where did the money come from?" "I don't know. You retained it." Samuel reached inside his coat. Fritz moved, but I was closer. Samuel removed an envelope and handed it to me. Inside were 10 $20 bills. The envelope bore no writing, but one flap had a blue stain. I examined it beneath the desk lamp. Carbon paper, Samuel nodded. The stranger had several envelopes in a leather folder. I saw typed forms inside. Business stationery, maybe. Did he drive? Yes. Cut black sedan. Plate? No. Anything in the car. A silver cigarette case on the dashboard. Initials MW. That gave us a direction. I telephoned Crane's office. His regular secretary answered. When I asked for Martin Wells, she paused before admitting he was Crane's private financial secretary and had not reported for work that morning. I asked for his address. She refused. I told her. Inspector Kramer would ask less politely. She supplied it. Martin Wells lived in an apartment on East 53rd Street. I left Samuel with Wolfe and Fritz and reached the building in 15 minutes. The elevator operator said Wells was home and had instructed him to admit no visitors. I considered myself an exception. Wells opened the door after my third knock. He was 42, medium height, dressed in a grey suit with pale-rimmed glasses and a neat clerk's face. He looked exactly like Samuel's stranger, except for the absence of a dark hat. His eyes went to my hands. Mr. Goodwin, Mr. Wells. I have nothing to say. You already paid Samuel Reed $200. His face did not move, but his right hand tightened on the door. I do not know anyone by that name. He remembers your glasses, your car, and the initials on your cigarette case. Wells glanced toward a side table. A silver cigarette case lay there. MW. I pushed the door open and entered. You cannot do this. I already have. The apartment was furnished without affection. A sofa, 2 chairs, a desk, and bookcases filled with ledgers and company reports. On the desk stood a typewriter with a blue carbon sheet beside it. Wells closed the door. What do you want? The truth before Kramer arrives. I acted on Mr. Crane's instructions. That came faster than expected. What instructions? To make certain Fritz Brenner found a sealed packet in his spice delivery, containing a dangerous compound? Mr. Crane said it was harmless in the quantity supplied. Did you know what it was? No. Where did you obtain it? Mr. Crane gave it to me. When? 2 weeks ago. Why use Samuel Reed? Crane knew Reed was trying to clear his father. He said Reed would cooperate if he believed the packet would force Fritz to speak. Did Crane tell you to hide your name? Yes. Did he tell you to arrange the tin? Yes. Did he tell you to interfere with Wolfe's cup? Wells went pale. No. Did you supply Crane with a capsule containing diluted digitalis? No. James Harrison did. Wells looked surprised enough to make it credible. Harrison was involved. He drove Crane to the brownstone under the name Martin Ellis. Wells removed his glasses and wiped them. That explains it. What? Crane changed the plan. Describe the original one. Wells hesitated. I picked up the telephone. All right, he said. He wanted Fritz frightened, he said. The old cook would identify the compound and connect it with the Harcourt Hotel. Crane would arrive soon afterward, pretend to be alarmed, and offer Wolfe a blackmail case. Why such theatre? Because Crane believed the house was being watched. He said letters and ordinary meetings were unsafe. Watched by Harrison? Yes. Crane was afraid of him, terrified, yet used him as a driver. Harrison insisted on accompanying him. Crane told me he would manage it. By swallowing a mild drug in Wolfe's office. Wells stared. I knew nothing about that. Crane told Nora Bell he planned to collapse. Then he did not trust me. Do you find that surprising? No. Wells replaced his glasses. He trusted no one after Harrison began demanding money. What was Harrison threatening to expose? The Harcourt poisoning, the Bellows settlement, and the first funds Crane used to buy property. Where did those funds come from? Wells looked toward the desk. Arthur Bellows had been negotiating the sale of the hotel's management company. After his death, Crane and Harrison obtained control through forged options. Bellows's partners were paid from secret accounts. Crane built his fortune from murder. I do not know who killed Bellows. You know Crane suppressed the inquiry. Yes. Why did he now want Fritz to speak? Because Harrison had begun destroying old documents and threatening witnesses. Crane believed if Wolfe reopened the poisoning, Harrison would be exposed before he could act. Crane wanted Wolfe to save him. Yes, while still keeping his own part hidden. Wells gave a tired nod. That sounded like Crane. Did you add the threat to the tasting spoon pass? No. You know me sent it? No. Where's Crane's briefcase? Wells's eyes moved toward the bedroom. That was enough. I went past him. He grabbed my arm. I removed it. The briefcase stood beside the bed. It was dark brown, locked, and carried Crane's initials. Crane left it with me the morning of his appointment, Wells said. He told me to destroy it if he died. That would be today's second bad instruction. Do you have a warrant? No. Do you have the key? He did. Inside were company records, copies of blackmail letters, a photograph of James Harrison outside the Harcourt Hotel, and a small sealed envelope marked Fritz. I opened it. The packet inside looked almost identical to the one hidden in the paprika tin. Same waxed paper, same folds, same faint bitter odor or something designed to suggest it, Wells said. That was the original packet. What do you mean? Crane gave me two, one for Reed and one to keep as proof. I opened the inner fold carefully. White powder. I carried it to Dr. Hale's laboratory before returning to the brownstone. Hale examined a sample, performed 2 quick tests, and looked annoyed. Baking powder. Harmless unless you eat the packet and choke on the paper. Any amaragantine? No. Could it be mistaken for the dangerous compound? By appearance, yes. The odor has been imitated with a trace of bitter herbal extract. So Crane had prepared a harmless duplicate for his briefcase, while supplying Samuel with the real compound. That distinction was not accidental. I reached the brownstone at 1:20. Wolfe had delayed lunch by 12 minutes, an event that would have made the newspapers if they understood civilization. Samuel remained in the red chair. Fritz stood behind him, not as a guard, but as a man who had not decided whether to forgive or strike. I placed Crane's briefcase on Wolfe's desk. Martin Wells admits paying Samuel. Crane ordered it. Samuel looked at Fritz. I told you. You told us a stranger, I said. You admitted that the stranger knew Crane's private instructions. I did not know his name. I removed the second packet. This was in Crane's briefcase. Dr. Hale says it contains baking powder flavored to resemble amaragentine. Fritz picked it up carefully. The wrapping is the same. Yes. Wolfe looked at Samuel. What was in the vial, mister? Wells gave you. The bitter concentrate. You tested it? No. I recognized the smell from my mother's description and from records I found. Then Mr. Crane supplied 2 packets. One dangerous enough to frighten Fritz honestly. One harmless enough to show later as proof that no real threat existed. Wells had given me a written statement before I left. I handed it to Wolfe. He read it once. Mr. Crane wished to control both discovery and explanation, he said. I sat at my desk. He ordered Wells to recruit Samuel. Samuel altered the tin. Nora returned it to the exact shelf. Crane arrived after Fritz found it. Yes. And Crane kept a harmless duplicate in his briefcase. Yes. So if the police examined the scheme later, Crane could produce the second packet and say the whole thing was theater. Precisely. Samuel looked bewildered. He told Wells the substance was harmless. Wolfe regarded him. He lied. Why use the real compound? To ensure Fritz recognized it instantly. Fritz's face hardened. He risked poisoning this household merely to frighten me. The packet was sealed. That does not reduce the insult. No, Samuel said. Crane wanted the truth exposed. Crane wanted selected truth exposed, Wolfe replied. He wanted James Harrison accused, Peter Doran cleared, and his own conduct presented as frightened cooperation. He was blackmailed. He was also a blackmailer of memory. Wolfe pushed the 2 packets apart on his desk. One packet was real, one was false. The real one entered Fritz's cabinet. The false one remained with Crane. I said, a reserve explanation. Yes. If Fritz had gone to the police before Crane's appointment, Crane could produce the harmless copy and claim Samuel had staged a symbolic warning. Yes. If Fritz stayed silent, Crane would collapse in your office and force the scandal into public view. Yes. Samuel's hands closed. He used me. He used everyone, Fritz said. There was no satisfaction in his voice. Wolfe looked at him. Mr. Crane understood your weakness. He knew you would protect Peter Doran's family by refusing to name the hotel scandal. He also knew that once police suspicion fell upon your kitchen, your silence would appear guilty. Fritz stared at the altered tin. He meant to force me to speak. Eventually, after first making me seem responsible. Yes, Samuel rose. He wanted Fritz publicly accused, not convicted, Wolfe said. Cornered. That is a narrow difference. To Mr. Crane it was sufficient. He expected the harmless drug in my cup to produce a controlled collapse. Inspector Kramer would discover the spice packet. Fritz would refuse to explain its significance. The refusal would deepen suspicion until he could no longer preserve the old promise. I said, then Crane would reveal Harrison and pose as the man who had come to warn Wolfe. Exactly. Fritz's face had gone still. Once again, Walter Crane intended an innocent cook to stand under accusation while he controlled the story. Wolfe nodded. That is the pattern. Samuel looked at Fritz. Yes, and now Fritz. Yes, but Harrison substituted aconitine for the mild drug. Likely, Samuel sat again. For 26 years I thought Crane's crime was hiding the truth. Wolfe's voice was dry. Men rarely improve their methods when the first ones make them rich. The doorbell rang. Kramer entered 5 minutes later with news that James Harrison had disappeared from the West Street office. His desk had been cleared, his false identification removed, and his car found abandoned near the river. I gave Kramer Wells's statement and the harmless second packet. He read both. So Crane arranged the spice trick. Yes, I said. Reed planted the packet. Samuel said, at Crane's order, though I did not know it. Kramer looked at Fritz. And Crane expected you to conceal the Harcourt connection. Fritz nodded. Kramer grunted. That made you look guilty. I understand. Wolfe said Mr. Crane depended upon it. Kramer turned to him. Then Crane poisoned himself after all. No, he expected a diluted drug. Mr. Harrison substituted aconitine. You still cannot prove. Harrison touched the capsule. Not yet. Kramer glanced at the 2 packets. Why keep the baking powder? Insurance, Wolfe said. Crane intended to prove, if necessary, that the kitchen alarm had never involved real danger. But it did. Yes. He supplied Samuel with the genuine compound, because only the true odor would compel Fritz's recognition. Kramer's mouth twisted. A man builds a fake poisoning and nearly gets killed by a real one. Justice occasionally attempts wit, I said. Wolfe ignored me. Inspector, find Mr. Harrison before he reaches Mr. Crane. He cannot enter the hospital. He entered my house behind a client. Do not overvalue doors. Kramer left with Samuel in official custody, though Wolfe made him promise the charge would concern the delivery deception, not poisoning. Samuel went quietly. At the hall door he stopped beside Fritz. I wanted my father's name cleared. Fritz looked at him. So did I. You waited 26 years. Yes. Samuel's voice softened without becoming kind. Then do not wait another day. Fritz nodded. After they had gone, Wolfe picked up the harmless packet and placed it beside the dangerous one. 2 identical appearances, I said. One intended to frighten, Wolfe replied, and one intended to excuse the fright. Crane thought of everything. No, he thought only of controlling what others would believe. And Harrison, he understood Crane's performance and altered one ingredient.
The cup?
Yes. I looked toward the kitchen. Crane meant to recreate the Harcourt scandal with Fritz standing where Peter Doran stood, under suspicion, until he spoke. Precisely. Fritz appeared in the doorway. Lunch is ready. Wolfe rose. Fritz looked at the 2 packets once more. Mr. Crane used a cook's honor, as if it were another seasoning. Wolfe regarded him. Then serve him none of yours. We went toward the dining room behind us. The real powder and the false powder remained on Wolfe's desk, wrapped alike and intended for different lies. Walter Crane had frightened Fritz to expose an old secret. James Harrison had turned the performance into attempted murder. And somewhere between those 2 men stood the truth about Peter Doran, still waiting to be served without disguise. Chapter 7. The ingredient that was changed. Martin Wells came to the brownstone at 3:20 in the afternoon, carrying no briefcase, no hat, and no remaining confidence. I opened the door and let him stand on the threshold for 3 seconds while I inspected the street behind him. A black sedan waited near the corner, but it belonged to a dentist whose driver was reading a racing sheet. No policemen were visible. That meant either Kramer had improved his methods, or Wells had reached us before being followed. I must speak with Wolfe, he said. You already gave me a statement. It was incomplete. That is a clerk's word for false. His pale-rimmed glasses were crooked. A bruise darkened the side of his jaw, and one cuff had been torn from his shirt. James Harrison found me. Did he improve your memory? He tried. I admitted him. Fritz was in the hall, carrying a tray of clean glasses toward the dining room. When he saw Wells, He stopped. Wells looked at him, then at the floor. Fritz said, "This is the man who paid Samuel." "Yes," I said. Wells swallowed. "I did more than that." Fritz's grip tightened on the tray. From the office, Wolfe called, "Archie." I took Wells in. Wolfe sat behind his desk with the 2 powder packets before him. The packet from the paprika tin was sealed inside a laboratory envelope, marked Danger Rawand. The packet from Crane's briefcase lay inside another marked Harmless Imitation. Wolfe had arranged them side by side. They looked identical. That was the trouble with lies. The most successful ones usually dressed like facts. Wells took the leather chair. Fritz remained near the office door, still holding the tray. Wolfe looked at Wells. "You lied to Mr. Goodwin." "Yes," repeatedly, "yes." "Then economy requires that you begin with the worst lie." Wells removed his glasses and wiped them with a handkerchief. His hands trembled. I changed the packets. No one spoke. Wolfe's eyes moved to the laboratory envelopes. "Which packets?" "The ones Mr. Crane prepared for Fritz." "Explain." Wells replaced his glasses. Crane ordered 2 packets made to look the same. One contained harmless baking powder mixed with a bitter herbal scent. The other contained genuine amaranthine concentrate. "We know that," I said. The genuine compound went into the spice tin. The imitation remained in Crane's briefcase. That was not Crane's arrangement. Fritz set the tray down on a side table. "What was his arrangement?" Wolfe asked. "The harmless packet was supposed to go into the spice tin. That changed the meaning of the entire kitchen performance," Wells continued. "Crane wanted Fritz frightened by the appearances and odor, but he did not want any real dangerous substance inside the house. The genuine compound was to remain in the briefcase as evidence of what had caused the Harcourt poisoning years ago." "Why possess it at all?" Wolfe asked. "He intended to show it to you after Fritz was forced to admit the old scandal. He wanted to claim James Harrison had supplied the original poison, and you reversed them." "Yes." Fritz's face went pale. "You sent the genuine compound into my kitchen." "Yes, knowing I might open it near food. It was sealed." "That is not an answer." Wells lowered his head. "No." Wolfe's voice was cold. "Why did you make the exchange?" "Because I discovered what Crane truly intended. You knew he wished to reopen the Harcourt case." "I knew that I believed he wanted protection from Harrison. Then I read his private instructions." "What instructions?" Wells reached inside his torn coat and produced several folded pages. I took them, checked them, and carried them to Wolfe. They were typed memoranda in Crane's office format. One listed the expected sequence inside the brownstone. "Packle discovered by Brenner. Kitchen sealed. Crane arrives. Controlled illness after drinking. Polis cold. Brenner refuses to explain compound. Public pressure forces statement." A second page concerned Samuel Reed. "Reed to be identified as trespasser and extortionist if necessary. Doran. Family claims to be dismissed as revenge." A third concerned Fritz. "Brenner. Long establishes complexity or cowardice. Either position destroys his value as a witness." Fritz read over Wolfe's shoulder. For once, his face showed nothing at all. That was worse than anger. Wells said, "Crane did not mean to clear Peter Doran honestly. He meant to control the reopening." Wolfe read the pages again. "He would blame Mr. Harrison for the old poisoning." "Yes." "And present himself as a frightened manager who had suppressed the matter under threat." "Yes." "Fritz would be forced to admit, remaining silent." "Yes." "Samuel Reed would appear to have planted the packet as part of a revenge scheme." "Yes, and Crane's own responsibility reduced to bad judgment," I said. "He intended to come out of a 26-year cover-up as another victim." Wells nodded. "Once the newspapers attacked Fritz for refusing to speak, Crane planned to offer Peter Doran's family money in exchange for a statement clearing Crane of intentional wrongdoing." Fritz's voice was quiet. "Blackmail." "Yes." "Against a dead man's family." "Yes." Fritz picked up the tray again, then put it down because his hands were no longer steady. Wolfe regarded Wells. "You found these instructions and became indignant." I had served Crane for 12 years. I had hidden payments, altered dates, and carried messages. I told myself I was protecting a difficult employer. When I read those pages, I understood he intended to do to Fritz what he had done to Peter Doran. Place an innocent cook beneath suspicions. "Yes. So you changed the packets." I wanted Crane frightened by risking. Fritz, I thought the packet would remain sealed. Wolfe's lips pushed forward. Your thoughts have caused considerable trouble. Wells accepted that without protest. I said, changing the spice packet did not poison Walter Crane. No. Then what else did you change? He looked at the cup's duplicate on the corner of my desk. The capsule. Fritz stared at him. Wolfe said, proceed. Wells took a long breath. Crane planned to swallow a mild preparation in your office. Digitalis, heavily diluted with glycerin and lemon oil. It would produce weakness, irregular pulse, and perhaps brief unconsciousness. Dr. Hale would recognize a heart disturbance, but the amount was intended to be survivable. Who prepared it? I did. That disposed of Crane's statement naming Harrison. You told Crane Harrison had prepared it, I asked. Yes, why? Crane trusted nothing connected to Harrison unless he believed he controlled it. I said I had obtained the formula through one of Harrison's old medical contacts. Wolfe said, where was the capsule to be placed? In the guest tumbler. I looked toward the side table where Crane had sat. Not Wolfe's cup? No. Crane told Nora he intended to use Wolfe's cup. He changed the plan without telling me. That repaired the most dangerous gap, Wells continued. The original instructions said Fritz would bring Crane water. Crane would drop the mild capsule into the guest tumbler while everyone was occupied with the spice packet. He would drink, collapse, and claim the substance had come from the kitchen. But Fritz watched him in the kitchen, I said. Yes. Crane could not place it there. So he returned to the office and chose Wolfe's cup. I did not know he would. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. What did you do with the mild capsule? I replaced it. With aconitine, yes. Fritz made a sound low in his throat. Wells hurried on. I intended only to frighten Crane. I believed the capsule would remain in his private case until he abandoned the plan. But Crane carried it into the brownstone, I said. Yes. How did it reach Wolfe's cup? Wells closed his eyes. I put it there. The office became very quiet. Even the noises from the street seemed to move farther away. I stepped toward him. You entered the office while I was admitting Crane. Yes. You were the man we believed had stayed in the car. No, Harrison was the driver. I was already inside. I looked at Fritz. The kitchen window. Wells nodded. I entered through the rear passage shortly before Crane arrived. Nora had left the window unlatched for Samuel. Nora said Samuel never used it. He did not. I did. Why? To remove the mild capsule from Crane's briefcase and replace it with the real one. Then why place the aconitine in Wolfe's cup? Wells rubbed the bruise on his jaw. I heard Crane in the kitchen. He asked Fritz for water. I thought he had already placed the harmless capsule in the tumbler. When he returned to the office, I believed the performance was ready. That does not answer the question, Wolfe said. Wells looked at him. I wanted Crane to see that someone else could reach the household. I put the aconitine capsule in your cup because no one was supposed to touch it, I said. A cup Wolfe drinks from every afternoon. You had not drunk from it yet. An excellent safety system, I said. I intended to remove the capsule after Crane collapsed. Fritz stepped forward. You placed poison in Mr. Wolfe's cup as a warning to another man, yes, and believe that was not attempted murder. I believe the cup would remain untouched. Wolfe regarded him with open contempt. Belief does not neutralize poison. Wells's face twisted. I know that now. You knew it then. No, I knew it was dangerous. I did not understand how quickly the capsule would dissolve. You prepared it. I used Harrison's formula. That brought Harrison back into the mechanics. How did you obtain it? I asked. From files in Crane's warehouse. Harrison had recorded methods for disguising alkaloids in wax capsules. He used them years ago at the Harcourt. Wolfe said. Then the aconitine came from Mr. Harrison's supply. Yes, but he did not know you had taken it. Not at first. Now he does. Wells touched his bruised cheek. He found the empty vial in my apartment. What did he want? To know whether Crane had named him. And I said no. Did he believe you? No. What else did he ask? Where Samuel Reed was. Where Nora Bell had gone. Whether Fritz had spoken. Fritz's jaw tightened. Wolfe said, how did Mr. Harrison find you? He had followed Kramer from the West Street office. He entered my apartment last night. Why are you alive? I told him Crane's memoranda were hidden here. Wolfe's brows rose. You used my house as protection without consulting me. Yes, an increasingly common discourtesy. I took the memoranda from Wolfe and examined the type. The paper bore Crane's watermark, and several pages carried his handwritten initials. They were genuine enough to ruin his preferred version of events. I said, "Let's make sure the sequence is right." Crane planned a harmless spice warning and a controlled collapse, using mild digitalis in the guest tumbler. Yes. You discovered he intended to discredit Fritz and blackmail Peter Doran's family. Yes. You switched the harmless spice packet with the genuine compound. Yes. You replaced the mild capsule with aconitine. Yes. You entered through the kitchen window and put the aconitine capsule into Wolfe's personal cup, expecting no one to touch it. Yes. Crane returned from the kitchen, saw his own planned tumbler untouched, and deliberately chose Wolfe's cup because he had separately told Nora that was where he would stage the attack. Yes. So neither conspirator knew the other had changed the plan. Wells nodded, miserably. Wolfe leaned back. Two deceptions collided. Crane expected the cup to contain his mild drug, I said. No, Wells replied. He believed the mild capsule was still in his pocket. I frowned. Then why choose Wolfe's cup? To make the attack appear directed at Wolfe. He intended to drop the capsule into the cup as he lifted it. Did he? I think so. That explained the laboratory concentration. Crane had added what he believed was mild digitalis. Wells's aconitine capsule was dissolving at the bottom. Two capsules, one harmlessly dramatic, one nearly fatal, had entered the same cup. Wolfe said, "Did you see him place his capsule from the hall?" His hand covered the rim. Then the cup contained both preparations. Yes, Dr. Hale found only aconitine and trace digitalis, because the digitalis dose was weak. Yes, I said. Crane swallowed a performance and a murder attempt together. Wells looked sick. I never meant him to drink from that cup. But you placed poison in it. Yes. You expected Wolfe to drink later. No, I intended to remove it. How? After Crane collapsed, everyone would attend to him. I planned to enter and take the cup. Instead, Crane collapsed too quickly. Archie remained beside him, and Fritz called the doctor. Wolfe said, "Yes, so you fled through the kitchen?" "Yes." "And took the delivery ledger?" "No, Nora took it." The folded cloth Theodore saw under Samuel's arm, the towel I used around the aconitine vial. Samuel carried the crate, but the cloth was mine. Theodore confused us because he saw me only briefly through the pantry doorway. I sat on the edge of my desk. The case had spent 6 chapters acquiring people, and now it was finally giving them their proper actions. Fritz looked at Wells. Why send the threatening sentence with Peter's spoon? I did not. Who did? Harrison. Wells took another folded paper from his pocket. It was a carbon copy of a messenger instruction. The parcel had been intercepted at Crane's office before delivery, opened, and resealed under Harrison's authority. Harrison added the threat, Wells said. He wanted Fritz silent. Why? I asked. Because Fritz could identify the compound from the Harcourt case and contradict Crane's accusation. Wolfe tapped the memoranda. Mr. Crane intended to name Mr. Harrison as the old murderer. Mr. Harrison intended to preserve the old silence. You intended to punish Mr. Crane for repeating his method against Fritz. Samuel Reed intended to clear his father. Nora Bell intended to protect Samuel. And everybody used Wolfe's house, I said. Yes, Wolfe replied, with deplorable freedom. The doorbell rang. I drew my gun before leaving the office. It was Kramer. He entered with 2 detectives and the news that Walter Crane had disappeared from the hospital. How? I asked. Orderly's uniform. A guard was found unconscious in a supply room. Wells stood. Harrison. Kramer saw him. You again. He has improved his statement, Wolfe said. Has he improved it enough for handcuffs? Yes. Wells did not resist when one detective moved behind him. Kramer looked disappointed by the lack of argument. I gave him the confession in condensed form. He interrupted twice, swore 3 times, and stared at Wolfe's duplicate cup, longer than was comfortable. So Wells put the aconitine in your cup? Yes, Wolfe said. And Crane added his own mild capsule, then drank. Yes. Wells expected the cup to stay untouched. So he claims. That is reckless endangerment at best, and attempted murder at worst. Your district attorney may enjoy the distinction. Kramer turned to Wells. Where would Harrison take Crane? Wells shook his head. I don't know. Wolfe said. You do? Wells looked at him. Mr. Harrison asked whether Crane had named him. He is not fleeing. He is completing the suppression of witnesses. That means Cranus, I said, and Samuel Fritz. Perhaps Nora, Wolfe said. Kramer frowned. Where? Wolfe looked at the 2 packets. The Harcourt poisoning occurred in the hotel's north dining room. The hotel is gone, but Walter Crane purchased the land. Now one of his warehouses stands there, Wells said. Everyone looked at him. Crane Storage Building number 3, he continued. Madison Avenue service entrance. The original hotel basement still exists beneath it. Kramer headed for the door. I reached for my coat. Wolfe said. Archie, yes? Bring Mr. Crane here if he is alive. Kramer turned. He goes to the hospital. After the meeting. What meeting? The one at which the first poisoning, the second deception, and the changed ingredient will be assigned to their proper owners. Kramer glared. You haven't caught Harrison. No. You haven't proved who killed Bellows. Not yet. You haven't proved Harrison knew Wells changed the capsule. Unnecessary. Kramer pointed at Wells. He has confessed to placing aconitine in your cup. Yes, then what is left? Wolfe's eyes moved to Fritz. Justice for Peter Doran. Fritz stood beside the tasting spoon, the real powder, and the harmless imitation. For 26 years he had kept silent to protect a dead man's family. Crane had counted on that silence. Harrison had threatened it. Wells had tried to weaponize it against Crane and nearly killed him. I put on my coat. Wolfe said, Tonight, Inspector, bring Mr. Crane, Mr. Harrison, Samuel Reed, Miss Bell, Mr. Wells, and Dr. Hale to this office. If Harrison is armed, he has relied upon poison, threats, and other men's fear. Such men are often armed only when cornered. Kramer opened the door. He is about to be cornered. We left for the old Harcourt basement. Behind us, Wolfe remained with Fritz and the 2 packets. One contained the substance that recalled the first poisoned dinner. The other contained nothing more dangerous than baking powder. They had been exchanged by a man who believed he could correct one injustice with another deception. But the ingredient that nearly killed Walter Crane had not been powder from a spice tin. It had been Wells's certainty that no one would choose Wolfe's cup. Chapter 8. Dinner after the truth. Fritz unlocked the kitchen at 11:40 that night. Before he did, the office had to contain 2 confessions, 1 arrest, an old murder, a wounded millionaire, and enough bad temper to heat the house without coal. The gathering began at 9. Inspector Kramer arrived first, bringing Martin Wells in handcuffs and Walter Crane in a wheelchair. Crane had been recovered from the basement beneath his Madison Avenue warehouse, where James Harrison had taken him after removing him from the hospital. Harrison had tried to escape through an old service tunnel and had been caught by Kramer's men at the street entrance. Kramer had sent him directly to headquarters. He is not needed here, Wolfe said when I asked. He helped bury the hotel case, I said. Yes, but he neither planted the packet in this house nor placed poison in my cup. His crimes may be assigned elsewhere. Crane looked 20 years older than when he had first entered the brownstone. His face was grey, one wrist was bandaged, and his voice had not recovered enough to be pleasant. Illness had reduced his strength, but not his opinion of himself. Samuel Reed came with a detective. Nora Bell arrived under her own power, though Kramer had warned her that cooperation was not the same as freedom. Fritz stood near the office door in his white jacket. He had refused to sit. Wells occupied the yellow chair. Crane's wheelchair faced Wolfe's desk. Samuel sat beside Nora. Kramer took the red leather chair and used it as if it were an official platform. I sat at my desk with the notebooks, laboratory reports, delivery ledger, Crane's memoranda, the old silver spoon, and the 2 packets arranged within reach. The altered paprika tin stood in the center of Wolfe's desk. Wolfe looked around the room. This affair began 26 years ago, he said, but the events requiring our immediate attention began with a spice delivery. Crane shifted in his chair. I have already told the police that Harrison was blackmailing me. You have told the police many things, Wolfe said. Tonight you will listen. Crane's mouth tightened. Wolfe pointed to the paprika tin. Mr. Crane designed a deception. He wished to reopen the old Harcourt hotel poisoning without honestly admitting his own conduct. He feared James Harrison, who had begun blackmailing him with knowledge of that crime. He also feared Samuel Reed's attempt to clear his father, Peter Doran. Samuel's eyes remained on Crane. Wolfe continued. Mr. Crane could have come here and requested assistance. He did not. A truthful consultation would have required him to admit that he suppressed evidence, threatened witnesses, and profited after Arthur Bellows died. Crane spoke hoarsely. I was a young manager obeying the hotel owners. You became an owner because Mr. Bellows died. That proves nothing. It proves motive for silence. The old records and witnesses will establish the rest, Crane said. Let him finish. Crane gave him a look but obeyed. Wolfe turned towards Samuel. Mr. Reed, you wished Fritz to acknowledge that your father had been innocent. Yes. You accepted $200 from a stranger, calling himself an ally. I did not care about the money. You accepted. Samuel's jaw tightened. Yes, the stranger was Martin Wells, acting upon Mr. Crane's instructions. Wells lowered his eyes. Wolfe said, Mr. Wells supplied the altered tin, waxed paper, adhesive, and a packet. Mr. Reed cut the tin open from below, inserted the parcel beneath the spice, resealed the base, and entered this house under the false Thomas veil. Samuel nodded once. Nora Bell had already copied the kitchen key, Wolfe continued. She returned the tin to the exact shelf where Fritz kept rare ingredients. She later removed the delivery ledger because Mr. Reed had accidentally signed his real name. Nora said, yes. Thus the tin appeared untouched. The top seal remained whole, but the bottom seam and fresh adhesive proved the method. Wolfe looked at Fritz. The compound had been selected for you. Fritz's face remained still. You recognized its odor because the same substance had been involved in the Harcourt poisoning. Mr. Crane knew you would recognize it. Mr. Reed knew you would remember his father. Miss Bell knew you would find the tin while preparing dinner. Crane said, the packet was supposed to be harmless. Wolfe looked at him. At last, a fact. I picked up the laboratory envelopes and placed them beside the tin. Wolfe continued. Mr. Crane prepared 2 packets made to resemble each other. One contained harmless baking powder scented with a bitter herbal extract. That packet was intended for Fritz's spiced tin. The other contained genuine amarogentine concentrate and was to remain in Mr. Crane's briefcase. Kramer asked, why keep the real stuff? Because Mr. Crane intended to produce it later as evidence against Harrison. He wished to claim that Harrison had supplied the compound used in the first poisoning. Crane's voice was weak but sharp. Harrison did handle it, perhaps, but you intended to control when that accusation appeared and what it meant. Wolfe tapped Crane's typed memoranda. The harmless packet would frighten Fritz without placing the household in actual danger. Fritz would lock the kitchen. Mr. Crane would arrive soon afterward. He would stage a controlled illness. Inspector Kramer would investigate, and Fritz's refusal to explain the compound would make him appear secretive and perhaps guilty. Fritz said quietly, as Peter appeared guilty. Yes, Samuel turned toward Crane. You meant to do it again. Crane gripped the wheelchair arm. I meant to force the truth out. No, Wolfe said. You meant to force out only the portion of truth that served you. He lifted one of Crane's memoranda. You planned to portray Mr. Reed as an extortionist seeking revenge. You planned to portray Fritz's silence as cowardice or complicity. You planned to place the old poisoning entirely upon Mr. Harrison, while describing yourself as another frightened witness. Crane stared at him. Wolfe's voice hardened. You built your fortune after an innocent cook was disgraced. 26 years later, you intended to protect that fortune by placing another innocent cook beneath suspicion. Fritz did not move, but his hands closed. Wolfe turned to Wells. You discovered the plan. Yes. You had served Mr. Crane for 12 years. Yes. You had altered records and concealed payments. Wells swallowed. Yes. But Crane's intention to ruin Fritz and blackmail Peter Doran's family offended you. It did. So you altered the deception. Wells looked at Kramer, then at Wolfe. I exchanged the packets. Samuel frowned. Wells continued. The real compound went into the tin. The harmless imitation remained in Crane's briefcase. Fritz's eyes fixed on him. You placed the dangerous substance in my cabinet. Yes, you knew food was prepared there. The packet was sealed. Fritz's voice became colder. You have said that before. Wells lowered his head. Wolfe said, Mr. Wells believed the genuine odor would frighten Mr. Crane and demonstrate that his scheme could not be controlled. That explanation is foolish, but it is not the act that poisoned him. Kramer leaned forward. Get to the cup. Wolfe's eyes moved to him. I am doing so. Do not rush truth merely because you arrived late to it. Kramer made a sound but kept quiet. Wolfe continued. Mr. Crane planned a second performance. Martin Wells prepared a mild digitalis capsule. Mr. Crane intended to dissolve it in a glass, swallow enough to produce weakness and an irregular pulse, then collapse in this office. Crane said. It was not intended to harm anyone. It was intended to deceive everyone. I needed your attention. You obtained it with the manners of an arsonist, ringing a fire bell. I placed the duplicate of Wolfe's cream-colored cup on the desk. Wolfe looked at it with disfavor. Mr. Crane originally intended to use the guest tumbler, but when Fritz accompanied him into the kitchen, Mr. Crane could not place the capsule without being observed. Fritz nodded. He asked for fresh water. Wolfe said. Fritz poured it. Mr. Crane pretended to drink, but left the tumbler nearly full. He then returned to the office. Nora spoke. He had already asked me whether Mr. Wolfe always drank from the same cup, and whether it stood in the same place. Yes, Wolfe said. Mr. Crane had changed his plan. By collapsing after drinking from my personal cup, he would make the event appear to be an attempt upon me, rather than a staged illness. Kramer looked at Crane. So you chose Wolfe's cup, deliberately? Crane said nothing. You ignored the water beside your chair, Kramer continued. You reached across the desk for Wolfe's. I wanted Wolfe to understand the danger. You wanted the police to think somebody had tried to kill him, I said. Crane's gaze moved to me. Wolfe said. Mr. Crane carried what he believed to be a mild digitalis capsule. As he lifted my cup, his hand covered the rim and he dropped it into the water. Kramer picked up the laboratory report. The trace of digitalis, but the aconitine was already in the cup. Wolfe looked at Wells. Wells's face had gone white. He said, I put it there. Crane turned toward him. The weakness left his expression for one instant, replaced by naked hatred. You. Wells could not meet his eyes. Wolfe said. Wells had discovered Crane's memoranda and decided to frighten him into abandoning the scheme. He stole aconitine from material associated with Harrison, enclosed it in a dissolving wax capsule, entered the brownstone through the unlatched kitchen window, and placed it in my cup. Nora stared. You used the window I left for Samuel. Yes, Wells said. You could have killed Wolfe. I intended to remove the capsule, I said, after Crane's harmless collapse. Yes. Wolfe's expression became severe. Mr. Wells assumed that no one would touch my cup. He knew it belonged to me, stood on my desk, and was normally guarded by household custom. He believed Mr. Crane would use the guest tumbler. He intended the presence of real poison in my cup as a private warning to Crane, proof that another man could also manipulate the performance. Kramer said, That is attempted murder. Wells looked at him. I did not expect anyone to drink. You placed aconitine in a drinking cup. Yes, that will be enough for the district attorney. Crane's voice rasped. He changed my capsule too. Wells shook his head. No, your digitalis capsule remained in your pocket. You dropped it into Wolfe's cup yourself. You gave it to me, yes. You knew what I planned. I knew the original plan. I did not know you had decided to use Wolfe's cup. Wolfe lifted a hand. That is the collision upon which the case depends. Mr. Crane expected my cup to contain only water. He added his mild drug and drank. Wells expected the cup to remain untouched until he could remove the aconitine. Each man changed the plan without informing the other, I said. Crane chose the cup to make the performance more convincing, yes, and Wells chose the same cup because he believed nobody would dare use it. Yes, the dose was unpredictable, Kramer said. Crane could not have safely staged it with aconitine. Precisely, Wolfe replied. That fact proved he did not know the real poison was present. His surprise when he collapsed was genuine. Crane's gaze fixed on Wells. You tried to kill me. No, Wells said. I tried to stop you, with poison in another man's cup. Wells covered his face. No one helped him. Wolfe turned to Fritz. You locked the kitchen at 4:17. Yes, sir. Before Mr. Wells entered the office? Yes. Before either capsule was placed in the cup? Yes. Your discovery of the packet caused you to halt all preparation, seal the room, warn me, and later warn Mr. Crane not to touch the cup. Yes. You concealed the Harcourt connection. Fritz's chin lifted. Yes. Why? Because I had promised Peter Doran's widow that I would never publicly reopen the scandal. An unwise promise, yes. You also concealed your shame at remaining silent when Peter was accused. Fritz's voice lowered. Yes, but you did not place either packet, alter either cup, invite Mr. Crane, or assist the deception. No, Wolfe looked at Kramer. Fritz, guilty of silence, Inspector. Silence may be foolish, cowardly, or cruel. It is not poisoning. Kramer nodded. He is clear. Fritz released a breath so quietly that only I heard it. Samuel said. And my father. The room changed again. Wolfe looked at him. Peter Doran was innocent of Arthur Bellows's poisoning. Samuel's face tightened. Can you prove it? Fritz opened a sealed replacement bottle for him. Nora Bell's mother saw Mr. Crane move Bellows's dessert plate. Crane suppressed both accounts. Harrison placed the empty compound bottle beneath Peter's table and later threatened the witnesses. Mr. Crane's memoranda, hotel settlement records, and Wells's financial files will permit Inspector Kramer to reconstruct the conspiracy, Kramer said. The old case will be reopened. Crane struggled upright. You cannot accuse me of murder, because frightened servants remember differently after 26 years. Wolfe regarded him. I have not said you poured the fatal dose. Crane stopped. You arranged the dinner, Wolfe continued. You moved Mr. Bellows's plate. You suppressed testimony, threatened Fritz and Margaret Bell, dismissed witnesses, paid settlements, and profited from forged ownership options after Bellows died. That is not murder. It is enough to begin. Kramer stood. And I intend to begin tonight. Crane looked toward the door, but Saul Panzer was waiting in the front room, and 2 detectives stood in the hall. Wolfe said, whether you or Harrison administered the original poison will be determined by evidence. Your present scheme is already established by your own memoranda and witnesses. Crane's shoulders sank against the chair. For the first time, he looked like an old man rather than a powerful one. Wells remained seated, staring at the floor. Kramer approached him. Martin Wells, you are under arrest for placing aconitine in Nero Wolfe's cup and causing the poisoning of Walter Crane. Wells stood. I will give a complete statement. You will give several. Kramer handcuffed him again. Nora would be charged with unlawful entry, conspiracy, and removal of the ledger, though Kramer said her cooperation would be reported. Samuel faced similar charges for altering the tin and entering under a false name. Neither had intended physical harm, but Wolfe did not ask Kramer to pretend they had behaved well. Truth does not require decoration. Before Kramer wheeled Crane out, Crane looked at Fritz. I never meant you to be convicted. Fritz regarded him. Neither did you mean Peter to die. Crane had no answer. The office emptied by stages. Samuel paused beside Fritz. My father's name will be cleared? Fritz said. I will testify. You should have done it before. Yes. Samuel looked at him for a long moment, then left with the detective. Nora followed. Kramer remained at the doorway. He looked at Wolfe. You could have saved time by handing me Wells yesterday. I lacked his confession. You had enough. I had enough for you to arrest the wrong person in the wrong order. Kramer glanced toward Fritz. He is clear, I heard you. And Crane, you will question him. If necessary, do not confuse exhaustion with accuracy. Kramer put on his hat. You never stop. On the contrary, I stop for meals. That reminded Fritz of something. He looked at the clock. 11:38. Kramer left. For a moment the brownstone was completely quiet. The old tasting spoon remained on Wolfe's desk beside the cut spice tin. The harmless packet and the genuine compound had gone with the police. Crane's memoranda were in Kramer's folder. The duplicate cup stood empty near my hand. Wolfe looked at Fritz, the kitchen. Fritz nodded. He went down the hall. I heard the key enter the lock, the bolt slide back, and the door open. 2 minutes later, familiar sounds began. A cupboard, a pan, the low controlled flame of the range. Achner placed carefully upon a tray. I looked at Wolfe. You are going to eat at 11:40. I have been prevented from dining by deception, poison, police, and sentiment. I will not add the clock to the list. What is he serving? The duck? The one interrupted 3 days ago? Certainly not. Fritz is not insane. At 11:47, Fritz entered with a tray. Roast duck, crisp at the skin, rested beside potatoes browned in butter, and a dark sauce carrying the restrained scent of spice. He had prepared part of it from fresh supplies while the meeting proceeded. He set the plate before Wolfe. Then he placed Wolfe's cream-colored cup beside it. The cup contained water and one slice of lemon. Fritz stood waiting. Wolfe looked at the cup. "So," I said, "this is the dramatic moment." Neither man acknowledged me. Wolfe lifted the cup, drank, and put it down. Fritz's shoulders eased. "The sauce," Wolfe said, "requires tasting." Fritz handed him the old silver spoon. Wolfe examined it, then dipped it into the sauce and tasted. He considered. "More salt?" Fritz nodded. No thanks, no apology, no declaration that trust had been restored. They did not need one. Fritz returned to the kitchen. Wolfe began dinner. I gathered the last papers from my desk. "Crane planned the whole performance," I said. "Wells changed the ingredients. Samuel and Nora prepared the kitchen trick. Fritz kept the old secret. Harrison protected the first crime." "Yes, and everything collapsed because Crane deliberately chose your cup." "Wolfe cut a piece of duck because two men believed they could control another man's choice. Crane believed the cup made his lie convincing. Yes, Wells believed custom made it untouchable." "Yeah, and Fritz?" Wolfe glanced toward the kitchen. "Fritz believed silence could protect the innocent. It didn't, no." From the kitchen came the sound of a knife moving steadily across a board. Wolfe tasted the sauce again after Fritz returned with the salt. This time he nodded. Fritz said nothing. He carried the tray away and closed the kitchen door, but he did not lock it. The delayed dinner continued in complete silence. After 3 days of false powders, poisoned water, old promises, and men arranging other people's guilt, silence had finally become honest.